this Monday, June 15th, 2026, at 6:45 p.m. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to give notice of an executive sessions held on June 8th, last Monday, and also just prior to this meeting to discuss legal and real estate matters. Okay, we're going to start off with a recognition of Bob Mikolas for his contributions of the Seal of Radnor Township Stained Glass Project. So this is for Bob Mikolas. I met Bob 35 years ago before I had kids, and I started teaching or coaching. They needed coaches for Radnor Little League on the bigger fields. And I think it was the time Bob was actually coaching his own kids at the time. Since then, he was coaching other kids, his brother's kids, busy coaching. He was also organizing all of Radnor Little League, Radnor basketball schedules, soccer schedules. He was involved in everything. If somebody wanted a youth sport, you would talk to him. If you wanted flag football, you would talk to him. He would tell you what you had to do. And he was a great mentor. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. For one of the days of the year where I actually am losing my voice, it's the day I have to recognize Bob Mikolas, and I feel so bad about that. Bob and I had the opportunity to work together for my entire career here in Radnor Township, which is now going on 27 years, amazingly. So I wanted to have Bob come up, because I do want to read something to him, although I might not get all the way through it, and I may have to have Bakir, our program supervisor, jump in and help me. So I really apologize for my voice. It was great this morning when we met with staff. For some reason, I lost my voice today. So I don't normally sound this good or sound this bad. I usually sound a lot better with a lot of better inflections. But I do have something that I want to say about Bob. So if you guys will all bear with me, because as you can see by everybody that's here in the room tonight, especially those that are standing along the back, they are here to celebrate Bob because that's how meaningful he is to our community. So tonight we gather not only to unveil a remarkable artistic contribution to the Radnor Township Municipal Building, but also to honor an extraordinary resident of 43 years, Bob Mikolas, whose dedication, creativity, and service have enriched our community for more than 4 decades. His beautiful stained glass rendering, which we're going to look at here shortly on the screens, of the Radnor Township seal will now be permanently displayed in our building's glass-enclosed east entrance vestibule, is far more than a work of art. It's a reflection of Bob himself, crafted with care and dedicated to the community that he loves. It serves as a lasting symbol of Radnor Township's history, its values, and its identity, while standing as a testament to the spirit of the time and the service that Bob has embodied throughout his life, especially here in Radnor. Bob's over 4 decades of service embody the very essence of Parks and Recreation, enriching community life through sports, scouting, outdoor stewardship, and the preservation and enhancement of parks, trails, and open spaces. Essentially, Bob's done the work of an employee in Parks and Recreation after all of these years of what he has done. And through his dedication, he's created opportunities for residents of all ages to play, learn, explore, connect, and thrive, helping to strengthen the quality of life and the sense of community that make Radnor Township such a special place. Bob has impacted and will impact the lives of generations for Radnor residents for years to come. The allotted time here tonight doesn't allow us to really fully capture all that he has done. And whatever you think you know that Bob has done, he has done a whole lot more, I can assure you. So at the heart of our youth sports programming, he's helped to create opportunities for our community's youth to learn teamwork, sportsmanship, leadership, and confidence. He's the founding and managing director of Radnor Youth Basketball, which started in 1990. He's had 40 years of coaching and managing not only within Radnor Youth Basketball, but Radnor Soccer Club and Radnor Wayne Little League, including both baseball and softball. He was the past president and current board member of Radnor Wayne Little League since 1988, and he has 35 years of managing the sports registration databases and the online scheduling, which I can assure you has been coming with a lot of ebbs and flows over the years with different systems and different technology and how it's evolved. With his leadership of Radnor Scouts, he's guided young people through experiences that shaped character, responsibility, and service to others. Yes, that's a picture of Commissioner Riley up there. Thank you to Gary Rathsmill for sending that to me. So he served as the vice president of Friends of Radnor 284, maintaining and managing the historic 1882 Radnor Schoolhouse and the surrounding open space for Scouts. And that stained glass that's up there in the right-hand corner is another one of his artistic contributions over at the 1882 Scout House, which is absolutely beautiful. He was Assistant Scout Master for Radnor Troop 284 since 1994, Assistant Scout Master for Troop Committee Member and Eagle Scout Advisor. He's guided dozens of projects that have happened all across the park system here in Radnor. And he's also been a Scout Merit Badge Counselor in camping, canoeing, hiking, and backpacking. As an advocate of trails, parks and recreation, and open space, he's worked tirelessly to enhance the quality of life residents throughout Radnor Township enjoy. He was instrumental in the planning and the building and the maintenance of the township's most cherished hiking trails in Skunk Hollow Park, along with his son, Andy Michaelis, and including the construction of the original Skunk Hollow Bridge, which there's a picture of it up there, which had actually been destroyed by a fire and then it was replaced. But I know that was a project that you really felt proud of over the years, and it made a big difference in the trail system in Skunk Hollow. And just as recently as last year, Bob led an effort to begin the establishment of a lot of the new trails within Skunk Hollow because so many have become so severely eroded over the years that they have been used during his time in helping to construct them. Bob's commitment to community extends further beyond all of these things that I've mentioned. He's served on numerous township school committees and all kinds of other organizations with other organizations, giving his thoughtful leadership and desire to make Radnor a better place. Perhaps what makes Bob's contributions so remarkable is not the vast scope, but the spirit in which they have all been given. He's never sought recognition or acclaim. In fact, I think this is bothering him to be up here right now hearing all this. Instead, he's consistently chosen service, collaboration, quietly making a difference here for Radnor. The stained glass unveiled today, which we will do here shortly, they'll be casted up on these screens, will become a permanent part of the Radnor Township building, reminding us of all the parks and trails that residents enjoy, in the organizations that you've helped build, and the countless individuals that you have inspired, and the generations of young people whose lives that have been enriched by your leadership. On behalf of the entire Radnor community, we thank you, Bob, for your artistic gift and for your contributions that have left an indelible mark on our township by making it a more vibrant and connected community. And for that, we are profoundly grateful to you.
And from the Township, the Board of Commissioners, I'm honored to give Bob Nicholas, who over 40 years volunteered service in the creation of the Radnor Township stainless glass seal, this plaque. Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words?
You'll be able to see it shortly, either on the screen or out in the lobby. This is a hobby I picked up when I stopped full-time work, but I still did work part-time. But my wife has been doing it for a very long time. Her mother did it before her. And we're very lucky to have the Wayne Arts Center here in town. And the master stained glass artist is in the back of the room, Mr. Mark Kidd, that helped me through a very challenging projects, both the one I did at the Scout Cabin and this particular piece. They're working with glass was something I had never done before. I seen my wife do it, and it is challenging as an art medium. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of enjoyment in putting it together. People ask me how long did it take. I started it in September of '23. So it takes a long time if you're not working on it every day, and I obviously don't work on it every day. So with that, I'd like to thank my wife and my family for their support, and I'd like to show it to everyone. All right.
All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, moving on to public participation. I know we have a lot of people here tonight for various reasons. There's public participation at the beginning of the meeting, and then later there's a talk about a development that's just in the caucus phase. You can speak now or at that other time, not both, and state your name. You have five minutes to talk, and what street you live on. And I'm really happy to see Sarah Pilling here, and she's first up. Thank you.
Sarah Pilling, 45 years in Garrett Hill. It's nice to be here. It was quite a trip to get here, but here I am. Although this letter was written by Katrina Ogilvy, I actually dictated it. It's amazing how quickly one can forget how to use a computer. And I just was stumbling, and Katrina came to my rescue. I spoke to Chief Flanagan this afternoon about several things about not only Garrett Avenue, but a lot of the township, but Garrett Avenue, and the condition of the sidewalk that abuts Emlyn Tunnel Field in the area of the new entrance and exit to Emlyn Tunnel Field. In 2002, when the township finally purchased the property, it had originally been owned by Mrs. Walker, and she sold it to a developer. And fortunately, the township came along and rescued it. The area was reconfigured, and a new sidewalk was constructed in front of the field between Ood Robinson's property and just short of the barrier to the Pig and Whistle. No further repairs ever incurred. In the last several years, 3 pedestrians were seriously injured by using this sidewalk. Bob Z was manager at the time. He replaced the sidewalk from Robinson's house to the exit driveway to the sideway. I must admit, I leaned on him a little. I told him I wouldn't sue him because I had beaten my forehead up if he would fix the sidewalk. While rebuilding it, they discovered the sidewalk had never been properly constructed. It had gravel, and then it had concrete. There was no any kind of wiring or anything. And that went to the exit ramp of the park, and someone had gotten very fancy and had put ridges down along the edge of the driveway. Well, guess what? It was just Trip City, because you didn't see it. It was only about that high, and you just would be running along, and the next thing you know, you'd be on your face. There was a second fall on the sidewalk near the park, not on the newly repaved area. A young child fell, and her dress was literally covered with blood. I witnessed this accident, but I have no knowledge as to whether the mother ever went to the police or to the excuse me, I'm a little short of breath, to the emergency room. So I don't know what happened. 2 Saturdays ago, and it's sort of the same thing. 2 Saturdays ago, I was pushed in a wheelchair up that sidewalk to visit a neighbor who is not doing very well at all. We had to keep veering into the street in order to avoid sidewalk obstructions. Garrett Avenue is an active street with many pedestrians crossing it either to the field or to the train station or back from them. It is high time for the sidewalk to be remediated. Well, I know each property owner has to replace the sidewalk in front of their property upon the sale of the property. It's time for the township to review this process and to ensure a safe sidewalk for walking. By the way, this does apply to other sidewalks. I've heard from more people who say, well, you ought to come to our neighborhood. Our sidewalk is a mess. please consider seriously undertaking this project so that Radnor can continue to boast about its walkable community. I'm sure a grant could be obtained to approve some, most, if not all, the cost. My hope is to avoid any further accidents. Sincerely, Sarah Pilling, and it's delightful to be here.
It's delightful that you're here, Sarah. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else from public comment?
Hi, my name is David Lambert, and I live at 240 Ravenscliff. And I'm here to talk about a couple items regarding the preliminary plans to demolish 118 and 120 North Wayne Avenue. First of all, I mean, I've read and we've seen all over the patch and other places the impact on parking, noise, disruption, et cetera. Unemployment, the fact that 118 is an attraction and brings people in. All of those things are very, very valid concerns, especially since they're estimating perhaps closure of a year or more. What's missing from this list of concerns that I've read, and I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything that's been said, is the fact that 118 North has a commitment to Radnor that you don't usually see in businesses. They host fundraisers for Radnor causes. For example, I was there, the Safe After Prom project. They donate to organizations. And I'm admittedly biased because I have a foundation that provides scholarships, 5 scholarships, 2 of which are to recent Radnor High School grads. And I'm a musician, and when I played, they write the check to the foundation, even though it's me because that's what I want. And when I showed Kenny Kearns a picture of the kids, he said, wow, how can we do more? I didn't ask him. He asked me, how can we do more? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, we'll talk to the manager. And they've been doing more every time I play there ever since. And I'm sure I'm not alone. I've heard about other things, but I don't have the specifics like what I just mentioned to you. So I guess what I'm saying is that all of these concerns that have been raised are valid, but what about the fact that you have a business that's giving back to Radnor? And what that means if it's disrupted, and it could not only be disrupted for a long time, they may have to move elsewhere, who knows? So I think that should be taken into account if it hasn't been already. By the way, I presented this to the Planning Commission and they sort of said, we don't really deal with things like that, but they suggested I bring it here, and this is almost the same statement. But the other thing is that I don't understand the planning process, but do you ever discuss with people the possibility of a compromise? And the reason I mention this is, hey, look, I'm not qualified to design a doghouse, let alone an establishment, a business establishment. But a friend of mine who came to hear me play, who happens to be an architect, I asked him, could they keep 118 North the way it is and demolish 120 all the way down, and then build 3 stories at 120 and add 2 stories on top of 118 North without really tearing it down? And he said, sure. He said, you would need some support columns because of the additional weight on top, but it could be done. And this way, I used to be a landlord. I'm sure the landlord's a very respectable person, but he could get most of what he wants, and the community would be less affected. I'm just asking if that kind of thing gets discussed, like, what about a compromise that would be less disruptive? And that's it. By the way, I've discussed none of this with 118, with Kenny Kearns. I wanted this to be purely from me. For all I know, he may hate my Restine idea. But I thank you for listening, and again, I hope that these two things, the give back and the possibility of a compromise, are considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Connie Congleton, 408 Midland Avenue. A group of concerned Wayne residents and others in your constituencies created a petition asking the township, just 4 days ago, we created this petition, asking to pause the development of 118-120 North Wayne Avenue. The petition asked signers to support the request for pausing development in downtown Wayne until concerns were addressed. As of just a few minutes ago, more than 550 residents have signed it. The petition listed 4 main points for consideration. First, the development is moving ahead before the vision for Wayne has been completed. Second, the character and history of downtown Wayne, which is a registered historic district, is at risk. Third, the impact on the community, businesses, and events will be significant and must be taken into consideration. Fourth, all environmental and infrastructure questions should be fully addressed and shared with your constituents. We are not against change or progress. What the people have signed this petition are asking for is change that follows a plan, progress with purpose. On behalf of every one of the people that signed this petition, we ask that you please take this request seriously and make the vision for Wayne paramount to any single development project. Thank you. And here is a copy.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Laura Getty. I live at 207 Lansdowne Avenue, and I've lived there for about 13 years with my husband. I am in opposition because I don't feel the plan is being considered in conjunction with what the community has said they want. And I'm going to extrapolate a little bit further. In April of 2025, the township adopted a comprehensive plan for Radnor. A lot of us know that. In the report, the words community-driven appear 6 times. And that report spawned a vision for Wayne, a separate survey that township residents directly and specifically are seeking for community feedback. And I quote, for the enhancement, evolution, transformation of downtown Wayne. Downtown Wayne, as Connie just mentioned, is on the National Register of Historic Places, and that means that it has been nationally recognized as a place worthy of historic preservation. When you drive through towns such as Westchester, Suburban Square, Chestnut Hill, and even through Bryn Mawr, the towns feel consistent. And Wayne, unfortunately, feels disjointed. Architecture is scattered, buildings sit empty, and retail goes to the highest renter. We have an amazing opportunity for thoughtful growth. Businesses like 118 North and passionate business owners like Kenny Kearns are a rarity. Kenny's vision for a tent during the COVID epidemic kept many businesses afloat. 118 North is a unique venue that brings a variety of people into Wayne and populates our restaurant. It also anchors beloved events such as the Wayne Music Festival, the Fall Festival, and Wheels of Wayne. Quite simply, 118 North is a rising tide that raises all ships. The opportunity before you this evening is to utilize the results from the Vision for Wayne survey, which has been out in the community for well over a year, to guide decisions related to any development in downtown Wayne. While the property owner is clearing zoning and planning boards, and I respect that process, it is the responsibility of the Board of Commissioners to vote on behalf of the community or constituents. While it has not been released to the public, The results of the Vision for Wayne survey are certainly has data that you can access. This is a moment for pause and redirection to put guardrails on new development that aligns with the residents and the comprehensive plan of Wayne. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I am Pam Lavin. I live at 116 Windermere Avenue. And I'm speaking today, just in the big picture, I see a trend in America where the greed of one entity is superseding the needs of a community. And I'm seeing the development of 118, 120 to be the greed of one entity. The only way we're going to stop this trend is at the local level if people in authority push back against it. I support other speakers who are requesting no on the project now until development is thought out and planned out, that 118 will be able to stay just like it is when your thoughtful consideration can give a planned out vision for what you do with downtown Wayne. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's David Abraham. I own the Tiger Shop, 122 North Wayne Avenue in Wayne. I've been in my store since 1970, 55 years. When I got here, it was at 10 cents an hour and a $2 parking ticket. People say when they raised it to $5, I'm never coming back here again. So yeah, we had Wayne Jewelers, Wayne Toy Town, Woolworths, the Cantonia. It was a nice little town, a big movie theater. There's been a lot of change on North Wayne Avenue. And most of it has all been good. But I'm not sure I understand the purpose of this multi-use, bringing more people into a town that already has enough people. We don't have empty stores. I'm sure the Radnor tax revenue is higher each year than it was before. We don't want this to be the town center in King of Prussia or Suburban Square. What's going on in Ardmore? We have projects here at Valley Forge for the senior center. The Walnut houses are built. The parking lot at AT&T is going on. The Margaret Quo, the apartments and restaurant on the corner there is being done. There's building all over the township, but it's ancillary building. It's not right in the center of North Wayne Avenue, where all the people come to pick up their kids from the Wayne Presbyterian Church, from daycare, where the trucks line up on the double line. It looks like Washington Avenue in South Philadelphia. The beer trucks, the food trucks, the UPS, FedEx, I could just go on. It's not good for what they want to do. The restaurants, who's going to eat outside with all that dirt and noise? It's going to take forever. And once it starts, it's going to go through the whole town. We don't want our town to look like Fort Lee, New Jersey. I came here because it's a great, fun, nice, people are great. They appreciate all the service, all the things that we do. I have a great relationship with all my customers. It's not just about business. It's a place to be. I've been here since I was 23 years old. So I see what's going on, and I'm listening to all these speakers, and I'm very proud of these people. They're doing a great job. There should be a parking garage before they start all this development on North Wayne Avenue. I mean, why put the cart before the horse? So let's, you guys have the power. I don't know how many variances 118 and 120 were given, but I'm sure it was a lot of variances to get this project to you guys. And I don't think that you have offices on North Wayne Avenue. You have parking lots, you go to work, you don't see what goes on there. So I would appreciate it just to listen and take into account what we have to say, because you guys are the last gasp before Turnpike. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have public comment on that? Any comments from the board? Okay, can I have a motion to the consent agenda? And a second? Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, on to the business agenda. 3A caucus, preliminary land development plan, 118 to 120 North Wayne Avenue. Demolish 2 buildings and replace with a single mixed-use 3-story building, first floor restaurant, second floor office, third floor residence, and a green roof. So after the presentation, we will have comments from the public afterwards.
Good evening, everyone. David Falcone here on behalf of the owner and applicant of 118-120 North Wayne. We are here as part of a caucus meeting for the land development, the redevelopment of these 2 properties into a mixed-use development, which you all just heard a little bit about. You'll hear some more about from us, and then probably some more from them. But I'll give just a very brief overview of kind of how we got here, and then I'll turn it over to people who are better at this than me. My job's pretty good. They're all smarter than me, so I can talk to you and say, this is what's coming, and they can explain it, so that'll be good. So this project is and has been going through the process for a little while. As you heard, part of the redevelopment here is 118 North, which we are all very familiar with. I love 118 North. I've played there. I appreciate it as a part of our town. And the dry cleaner that was next door to it, those properties are being sought to be demolished and redeveloped. The intent at this point, and has been through the process, is to redevelop the 118 space and a little piece of the dry cleaner to remain a restaurant music venue. That is the intent. And then to have a smaller piece next to it that I believe the intent at this point is to be some type of an art gallery. That would be your first floor. The second floor would be an office use that the owner intends to self-occupy. And the third floor would be 4 small studio apartments. As part of this process, we needed 2 variances to go through as part of the plan that was shown. The first was with respect to a loading space, and the second was the number of parking spaces that would be attributed to this development. Both variances were granted at the end of last year in the fall without objection from the zoning hearing board. There was a kind of significant condition placed on the second floor use of the property, and that was that there would be no more than 6 employees that could ever occupy that for its intended office use. That condition was obviously accepted by the applicant, and we moved on from that point. The number of parking spaces we sought was 4, as to apply 1 space for each of the approved residential units on the 3rd floor. The zoning hearing board granted that variance, but I should note both the zoning hearing board and the planning commission recommended that there be no parking associated with this use, that those spaces not be assigned to the residential users, that those users take either transit-oriented type development or find parking elsewhere. That said, they were not inclined to make that a condition or any part of a recommendation, but instead recommended to the owner that they consider that. And that was specifically to keep traffic from going back behind the proposed development. There is an easement there that is used by all of those properties that kind of sit next to this site, and the engineer will kind of highlight that for you. And that is where ultimately the access would be. That is a used easement today, but it is not really a residential type access easement. As some of the neighboring owners of the businesses have suggested, it's probably not a great spot to have people traveling back and forth. So we are considering what to do with those spaces, but as part of the initial zoning hearing board's approval, they allowed us to assign one space to each of those residential units and not have any designated spaces for the office or the retail on the first floor that kind of exists today. And that's kind of consistent with the uses today, meaning there's not compliant parking for 118 or the dry cleaner. All of that parking is taken out as part of the general public parking in Wayne. We'll kind of get into that when we explain the different uses at the levels. With me tonight, I have our architect, who will be the first one to jump up and kind of walk you through the plan and some renderings so you can see exactly what has been proposed. And then we have an environmental consultant from my firm, from Saul Ewing. It is not the consultant who prepared the report. We will certainly make him available should the board have questions that John can't answer. I imagine you might. So he can be back. But John's here to kind of interpret or assist with interpretation of the environmental studies that were provided. At the Planning Commission meeting we last attended, they asked that we submit all of the environmental reports that we had, the owner had performed before we moved forward. We had done that. Also, as part of that request from Mr. Rice's office was a copy of the title report, which was sent to Mr. Nelson, who requested that. So we did submit those pieces. And then lastly, we do have Mr. Smogard, who is the owner of the property. If there are any specific questions for him, he's here to address those as well. We did appear, as I noted, in front of the zoning hearing board. We did receive unanimous approval for our requested 2 variances. And we appeared 3 times in front of the Planning Commission. One as part of a sketch plan, and then 2 separate meetings as part of our land development process. The last meeting in front of the Planning Commission was, I believe, 3 months ago, 2 months ago. And the recommendation from the Planning Commission was for approval of this preliminary land development plan. So if there's no specific questions for me, just on process, Commissioner Agnew.
Mr. Alcone, you just said that it will remain a music venue.
That's the intent. That's how it's being
Did
designed.
you already have an agreement with Mr. Kearns?
No. So I wanted to be very clear with that. So it's being designed to be a music venue. The hope is that there will be an agreement with Mr. Kearns and his group to return, but it's being designed to be soundproofed because the owner would like for them to stay. There is no agreement, and I guess that will happen. The project is going to be designed to be a music venue. That will just create additional soundproofing. So that'll be part of the construction process.
Have you talked with Mr. Kearns' attorney about it?
We've had initial conversations with Mr. Kearns about it.
Mr. Kearns' attorney.
Mr. Kearns has reached out directly to us. I've not spoken to Mr. Kearns' attorney. I speak to Mr. Kearns, I wouldn't say regularly, but enough. So that's all I can say about that. But there is no agreement other than the existing lease, which is there for 118 currently.
And that runs till when?
I gave an extension, and it runs until April currently.
2027?
2027.
Sorry, quick question, just from the beginning. The 2 variances that you mentioned at the
Yes.
beginning of it, what were they?
Loading space and parking, number of parking spaces.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners to Mr. Falcone?
I'm going to have questions that are going to be probably best addressed to you later on, but I think we should have the entire presentation. And I also just like to take a couple of sentences to kind of talk through the process for the public once we get there. So
Okay.
I'll ask you questions when you guys are all done.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Agnew, I should also note, Mr. Kearns negotiated to purchase this property from my client. He was represented in that transaction by counsel. that ultimately was terminated. Mr. Kearns' purchase agreement for the property.
Was represented by counsel
At-
in that agreement, and the counsel representation was
Mr. Kearns terminated the agreement of sale. He had the property under agreement to buy from my client and was represented by counsel as part of that agreement process, and they terminated that agreement. I really can't speak to the specifics of that, but it was terminated.
Hi, Dan Cellino, architect for this project.
Hi.
So we're going to go through, hopefully briefly, the scope of the project and some of the constraints, and just talk generally about the use and access for this potential new development. So obviously here, the area, I'm going to zoom in a little bit further here to talk about a few things. One is obviously the property highlighted and outlined in red here. But one is the access to that property by vehicle, and that is through an alley up here up to the north, and then back towards a shared access agreement between the neighboring properties. Currently, cars do park in that alley access, and so the new development is going to address both the letter of the code, that alley access exists and we have to abide by that, but then also the practical use of how the neighbors are currently using that. So we hope to strike that balance there. So let me move to what is existing first. So again, the property outlined in red here, and shaded in gray is the existing buildings, and otherwise the remainder of the site is pavement, and so the entirety of the site is impervious. And now to the proposed plan, again outlined in red, the property lines, and dark gray where the first floor portions of the building are, and in light gray adjacent to it, areas of the building where the second floor or potentially third floor overhang, and that is to allow for parking to occur in this back portion. And again, just back to the vehicular access and those alleyways and easements. There's two easements to talk about. One is from North Wayne Ave back to the alley, and that's highlighted in blue here. And the second one is an agreement between the 5 neighboring properties, 4 neighboring properties and ours, and that's highlighted in blue here. And if you remember the aerial, that's where the cars currently park now. And so our plan both abides by that alley easement, but also provides enough space that the neighbors can continue parking in that arrangement, and cars can get back to our parking lot. Okay, so now just a little bit further into the building and the uses of the building. The front-facing facade here on North Wayne Avenue will have 3 doors, one to a restaurant use, which is being planned right now to accept 118 North to come back. The second is the space above it, which is planned as a retail space, potentially a gallery. And the third is an access to an elevator and stair lobby which will serve the second and third floors. That lobby and corridor will continue all the way to the back to the parking lot, so the cars parking there could get access to the second and third floors. Above this first floor plan is the second floor plan. Again, it's an office space intended to be occupied by the owner. And I'll let him, if you have questions about that use, I'll let him speak about what is planned there. Now up to the third floor and roof. So on the bottom plan here is the third floor, and the top is the roof. The third floor has 3 apartment buildings each, or sorry, 3 apartment units, each about 800 square feet. Each also having their separate roof access area, so it's an outdoor balcony roof deck that each unit will have. On top of that, almost entirely the roof above that is a green roof, and in fact a blue roof, which our engineer will describe further in the steps taken to mitigate stormwater. And so now on to the front facade. This is the facade of North Wayne Ave. And I'll zoom in a little bit here to make these views a little bit bigger. People here today might notice some differences. We've heard some comments from the Planning Commission meetings and from the public about the character of this building, and so we've made some adjustments to hopefully better fit the character of what the people of Radnor would like to see here. In this facade, there's, again, let me just point out the 3 entry doors. This one here, the one next to it for the retail space, and then all the way on the right is the access for the apartments in the upper floors. Only the first 2 stories are pushed forward or up against the property line or up against the sidewalk line of North Wayne Ave. The 3rd story is pushed back. That's an approximate 11 feet setback, and that's done to help fit in, having the building fit in better with the heights of the rest of the buildings on North Wayne Ave. And then 2 views looking up and down the sidewalk towards this building. And again, I'll pause here for a minute. You can see at the oblique here the step back of the building. The front facade is planned to be red brick and limestone, and so the white portions that you're seeing on the front facade here would be limestone and red brick. As we turn the corner to the party wall, it would be either metal panel or stucco that's set back. And I'll stop here again just to talk about the massing of this building to help better understand that character. On the left here, we're on North Wayne Ave, so this is North Wayne Ave right here. This is our building with the 2 stories that are up against the sidewalk and the 3rd story that's pushed back. And then looking back, North Wayne Ave is right here where my mouse is. And this space is that access easement back to the parking. You can see how this portion of the building will overhang the parking. And then I'm just going to end on a comparison to the other buildings along North Wayne Ave. So the top image is looking westerly from North Wayne Ave and easterly at the bottom image. Let me see if I can center it a little bit better. Oh, that'll have to do. And then also we drew these dashed lines to indicate the height of our building, both the first one here being the height of the 2-story portion and the top one being the height of the 3-story portion in comparison to the other structures that are on North Wayne Ave. There's several buildings on North Wayne Ave that are approximately the same height as a two-story portion. There are there's three that are approximately the height of the three-story portion.
When you were before the planning commission, you said there were 4 apartments.
There are 4 apartments. I'm sorry if I misspoke. I'm sorry.
There's 4 now.
There's 4 apartments, yeah.
And when you were before the planning commission, there was like a lot of grass or something? That's
Yeah.
not in these renderings. Look, I look
The
like grass. That's what it was
grass, yeah, sorry, there'd be more. Grass on the roof?
On the green roof?
On the green roof, yeah, there's still a green roof. This is the roof plan here. So all these portions that are green roof, or in fact blue roof, which our engineer will describe what that is.
So the parts that are marked roof deck below, is there one per apartment?
There's one per apartment, yeah. And private use for those apartments, not for the building as a whole.
One question we got from the planning commission, I want to make sure it's clear. The green roof is not accessible for the residents. It's not like an open green space for gathering. It's simply a blue roof. That was one of the questions the planning commission had for us, and I believe some residents as well. They thought that there would be a gathering area on top. It is not. It's going to be closed.
Quick question. The roof deck below, the two that are adjacent to each other, where are they looking to?
Their height is approximately 2 feet below the neighboring building's parapet. So, there's not a fantastic, landscape view out of them, but it's an outdoor space.
Okay. Can you go back to that oblique view that you had?
I'm sorry, 2 feet above, not below.
So you show the 2 decks that look out toward North Wayne and then one to each side. What's the cutout in the back? It doesn't say deck below, but it looks like a,
Let me
give us the one with the
see
green
if I
roof
can-
picture. No, these are to North Wayne, too. No?
So there's one deck that faces North Wayne Ave. There's 2 separate ones here. And there's another one that's in the back. And then there's about 10 feet of that deck, and then it goes into a green roof that's beyond that.
Well, what's the one that's on the northern side?
Yeah, what's the one on the north, I guess?
Oh, this one. Oh, this is an area that is absent of green roof to accept rooftop equipment, HVAC equipment.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just make one final comment in response to a comment of one of the residents. We have had a structural engineer evaluate the current building's foundation, and his determination was that it was insufficient to support a new structure, particularly this 3-story new structure. So there was a comment about working around that, but that would require an entirely new foundation system below 118 North to accommodate.
Can it support 2 stories?
Their recommendation was not to put anything above that foundation.
Not even the first floor that's there? Do they think that it's in danger of collapse with the building that's currently sitting there?
No, to add additional stories on top of that. The one story, I believe, was okay.
So the foundation can hold one story.
I believe that was the findings of that report.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Dixon. I'm outside counsel representing the applicant. I'm an environmental lawyer, and I wanted to just give an overview of some of the environmental reports that I believe were submitted, some of the findings in those reports, as well as a path forward on how to address any of those concerns, and of course answer any questions. As I'm sure you've seen from the several different reports that were submitted, the client did a substantial environmental investigation of environmental conditions at the site. This was not just a desktop review. This involved on-site investigation, soil sampling, indoor air sampling, outdoor air sampling. And the point of this investigation with the phase one, it's really the common starting point to assess environmental conditions at a site. And an environmental consultant who put together the reports, they're trying to identify any potential sources of hazardous contamination or any other environmental concerns that may need to be addressed. Because this site was formerly used as a dry cleaner, dry cleaners commonly use chlorinated solvents in their processes. These are referred to as PERC or TCE. And the basic concern with that compound is it can get into the subsurface, it can volatilize into gas, and it can migrate through the air into buildings. That's basically vapor intrusion. Again, very common for dry cleaners, so that's why as you're looking through the reports, VOCs, which is basically looking for vapor intrusion, that's why that was such a key focus. Because the site was historically used as a dry cleaner, sort of out of an abundance of caution, again, very common, the consultant recommended a phase 2 environmental investigation. That's essentially a more targeted investigation that involves some kind of sampling of media. So you saw in the report there that there are samples of the subsurface, and the report found, at least for the subsurface, that there were no VOC exceedances above DEP's residential and non-residential statewide health standards. I'll pause for a minute just to sort of point out what those are. So those are standards that the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection sets in their regulations for a multitude of compounds, many which can naturally occur in the environment. And if a sample result is below the standard, DEP deems that result to be safe. If it's above the standard, that doesn't necessarily mean the property can't be redeveloped or used. It just means that there could be an extra step needed to either mitigate that concern, address it, or further risk analysis. So here, even though that phase 2 investigation did not find any exceedances in the soil, with the exception of one which the report says was vanadium, which is a naturally occurring metal, didn't recommend any further investigation because the building will be, or the site will be capped. That could have been, after reading the report, that was potentially a typo, and that may have been referring to thallium, because the report shows an exceedance of thallium but not vanadium. But I can certainly confer with the consultant just to verify that was the compound they were referring to. But the end result of that investigation was, because the site was historically used as a dry cleaner, they recommended indoor air sampling to evaluate whether there's any vapor intrusion in the building. And then finally, the most recent step, I believe this was October 2025, the consultant did some sampling at the building. They sampled for VOCs in the subsurface, they sampled for VOCs in the indoor air, and they sampled for VOCs in the outdoor air. There was one exceedance of VOCs for the residential statewide health standard for PERC or TCE. Now, of course, the property is non-residential right now. If it is eventually used as residential, the path forward is to, as part of the redevelopment process, and once the building is constructed, do indoor air sampling to determine if the VOCs is still an issue and whether it exceeds the residential standard. The reason for that is because vapor intrusion is highly dependent on the way the building is constructed, building materials. So in order to get a realistic sense of is there an exceedance of VOCs, you would sample, once the building is constructed. And again, if there was an exceedance, the common method for vapor intrusion and VOC exceedances at former dry cleaning sites is to install what are called vapor intrusion systems. They're sort of like ventilation systems, almost how buildings deal with radon. Those are widely accepted methods to mitigate the risk of any VOCs in a building. Accepted method of dealing with VOCs by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, and so forth. So that is the kind of general gist and overview of those reports, and a path forward to address VOCs if that is an issue once the building is constructed. But I'd be happy to answer any questions now, or you can wait, whatever you prefer.
But I want to hear the entire presentation first.
Okay, sure.
I have a quick technical question. I'm reading this report on detectable concentrations of trichloroethylene have been found within the soils below the building slab and exterior to the building in the rear. This is an indication of discharge of contaminant into the environment. They say the concentrations of the contaminant are below state standards, but then they exclaim about how limited the screening was, which is really distressing to me.
So I obviously can't speak for the consultant of why.
Yeah, I'll have to get them when they come back another time.
Sure. But I believe, based on what I've seen, sort of the standard protocol for the consultant has discretion in terms of how many soil borings they'll install, what kind of screening they'll do. I think based on sort of the size of the site, they were confident, but understand your concern if you want to speak to the consultant.
Yeah, I'd just like to have, but you clearly weren't there. I know they hit some rocks or hard, so they didn't get as technically complete a screen, but it's a little jargonish for me, so I'm going to need the expert
Okay.
at some point to explain it to me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
Do you know where the soil borings were done? Where in the building?
Rear of the building, and it's all identified in the report. And they gave their rhyme or reason as to why they
It
did
was
the
in the
borings
back
where
of the
they
building.
did.
Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I recall they tried to do some sort of where the chlorinated solvents would have been stored, to get an accurate, sense of is there anything here?
And what about the canisters, the VOC canisters? Were they just put all throughout, or just in the front, or what was the?
I think they would have put those all throughout, but again, I'd have to look back at the details of the report.
And does airing out the building have any effect on that?
Airing out the building through.
Like some
kind of
people,
a-
like, let's be frank.
Yeah.
With radon, when it was a big thing back in the 80s, people sell their houses, just keep all the windows open in the basement and and air it out, and you come test for radon, it's fine. It's like below the level, but it's really not, so that's some question. If you air out the building, does it affect anything?
I think, It would probably depend on the concentrations of the VOCs. But I highly suspect that because vapor intrusion systems, which are designed for ventilation, are so common. I mean, opening a window, it's not necessarily something that would actually address the issue.
I'm just wondering, because the window is open in the front and the door is open in the back. I was there yesterday. The door blew open. The back door blew open.
If you're speaking, we need to have you on mic and camera, please.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe Smogard, the current owner. These tests were done, the soil samples were all completed prior to my ownership during my inspection period to actually buy the property. It was an ongoing business, but everything was done according to their standards because I wanted to make sure if I'm buying the building, I'm very aware of everything that was going on. The air sampling was done while I was under contract for sale with Ken Kearns for him to buy 118 North. And that was done at his recommendation and approval to make sure he was comfortable. Obviously, the results came back below commercial remediation. So he was there. The business was closed at the time. The entire business was closed up, so nothing was aired out. It was done on the day in which they are closed.
So you're going to fix that window and close that door? It's
What?
just a kid can go.
No, it absolutely needs to be fixed. I actually am going to sidebar and say I'm annoyed it's not fixed because I asked my GC to get over there and fix it like 2 months ago. So I will absolutely get that fixed, and I'll do it personally.
The window and the door.
Yep. Whatever needs to be locked up. It should be a vacant property, should not be accessible to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'll sit back.
Set.
Does it say it passed the residential standards? I'm sorry, I thought it said it passed non-residential standards in Saul Ewing's cover letter.
It passed non-residential for air. It passed both for soil.
So in the air, it didn't pass residential.
Didn't pass
that right?
residential.
Okay.
But again, that would be resampled basically once the building is
I can't
constructed.
hear you.
Sorry, that would be basically sampled again once the building is constructed. Because vapor intrusion is very dependent on the way buildings are constructed, building materials. In order to get an accurate sense of whether it could meet the residential standard, you would sample at that point, which again is common.
So if you were to build this with 4 residences and you resample and it's not at the levels for a residence, what do you do about that?
So I think, and I can't speak for the applicant, I think they would do the sampling, I think before someone moved in. But again, this isn't the first time a former dry cleaning building has been redeveloped in Pennsylvania. Vapor intrusion systems are the exact type of thing that mitigate and address the vapor intrusion in the indoor air. There's a variety of different ways they can be designed based on the unique characteristics of the building, but the vapor intrusion system is what basically would make sure the vapors dissipate and aren't at harmful levels indoor. It's almost like I think of it almost like a ventilation system. It's just installed, during as part of the construction process.
Are there other parts of the construction process that would be more reliable? I mean, it seems to me that you put all this money and time into building something to find out you can't let people live in those 4 nice apartments. What do you, wouldn't you want to start remediating that at the ground floor before the building goes up? I just don't understand what would happen.
So I think you'd want to have an accurate sense of, is there any exceedance? And you wouldn't have that accurate sense until construction is far enough along, because right now all you have is a sample, in an old building. So the exceedance could have been due to a variety of factors based on building, construction. Also could have been materials in the building. We just don't know.
So
But
again, wouldn't you want to keep testing now to make sure that you are not opening up
I
the
understand
ground
your
with all of
question.
these contaminants, building a building, having 4 residences there, and finding out that it's a poison building? I don't understand
I think I
why
understand
this
your question.
process would wait till the end to double test.
Correct. So there will be additional testing, but also the applicant, I believe he committed to this to the Planning Commission, is going to put the barrier in, the vapor barrier, even if not required kind of initially, because he wants to do it before the building is constructed. So he's going to proactively mitigate, even if there's no mitigation required. So I believe that was kind of where you were getting with your question. Like, why would you build a building, go back, and then if they say you have to put a barrier in and you've got a huge building built, that's more problematic. We completely agree. So the applicant said to the Planning Commission, we are going to put the barrier in as a proactive form of mitigation, even if it's not required.
But he just
And then
referred,
you,
I'm sorry, Mark.
sorry, now, you as the environmental expert, is putting the barrier in gonna guarantee those test results come out better? Is the barrier a mitigating? You're saying a ventilation system is the mitigation. You're
There's no
saying that
guarantee.
capping something off at the ground and putting a barrier is the mitigation. So if we don't know what the best mitigation for this is in this room, I would like the next time for you to come with somebody who does. Because I'm hearing two different answers about how you deal with this, and right now, we've got air that isn't livable in the test results that you currently have. So is
Yeah.
it a ventilation system? Is it a capping the ground? If you cap the ground, do you need the ventilation system? Is it a both and? Like, how do you make sure that you can move people into this? If you can even have 6 people working there every day. I mean, I know that we're calling it residential versus commercial, but commercial means coming in and out of a building to purchase something, I think, in those testings. If you've got 6 people who are there, 8 to 10 hours a day, it's as much as somebody living there.
We will bring the consultant back to perform the report for the board, so that you can speak directly to them. All we can do is kind of interpret the report and what was kind of promised to the Planning Commission, but I think your questions should be asked to that person, and they should answer them.
Why isn't he here now? Oh.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening. My name's John Anderson. I've been before you before. I'm with Cornerstone Consulting. I'm a civil engineer for the project. We performed survey-related services for the project, also put together the site plan application package, did stormwater analysis, and so forth. So the slide that's before you actually is the pertinent information for my testimony here this evening. Basically, how we're handling stormwater management for a site that is almost 100% impervious coverage, and then the actual property itself is almost going to be covered with a building. So this is what we call an urban infill redevelopment project. There's no stormwater management on the property today. All the roof leaders discharge out the front of the building through the face of the curb in some fashion. All the stormwater is directed to North Wayne Avenue. We were urged and challenged by staff, Planning Commission, your consulting engineers to investigate stormwater management fairly heavily. You have an existing project down the street from here that actually did stormwater management for its project and did it in the street. We did look at possibly going to the property to the rear to see if there was an availability of space that we could do stormwater management in that property. That did not pan out for success for that investigation. We then looked towards North Wayne Avenue. North Wayne Avenue is a state route. PennDOT's not going to allow us to do stormwater management or underground facilities within the right-of-way. However, Radnor Township has an extended right-of-way that goes basically to the curb line. So there is availability of area there or property that we could potentially do stormwater storage within North Wayne Avenue. However, we did extensive utility investigations within the sidewalk and that immediate paving area, and there's significant underground electrical conduit runs, sanitary runs, public water, and so forth. So our proposal is to provide stormwater management through what we would call a green roof, and the application or our people here are saying blue roof. It's kind of a combination. We are providing a green roof, but we're also storing stormwater management on the roof in that green medium and stone subbase medium to allow stormwater to discharge over time. The green roof medium is a organic material that it's a succulent type of variety of planting material that absorbs stormwater. It also, the soil filtration in the stone acts as a water quality component. It filters out any type of contaminants in the rain that's coming down before discharging into your stormwater system. What we've been able to achieve, again, this project does not have any type of stormwater management on it. It's almost 100% impervious coverage. One of the components in your stormwater management code indicates that pre-existing, our calculations must look at the overall property in a meadow condition, or as if it's grass or equivalent. So we cannot actually provide that, we can't provide that calculation where we take our pre-existing condition back to meadow, because the way we're handling stormwater through a green roof system, green roof, even though it's green, it's organic, it's a growing medium, it doesn't actually allow us to take our curve numbers down to an equivalent meadow. So therefore, we can't actually get our rate discharge utilizing our pre-existing condition as meadow, not impervious coverage. And I know I'm getting weirdly technical here, but we can't actually make the calculations work by providing a green roof system and a blue roof system. So we would have to, we'd need more property, which we don't have. What we've been able to achieve, and the only basic waivers that we're asking for, there's two with regard to stormwater. Infiltration, your code requires us to infiltrate stormwater runoff into the ground if we can, and we don't have any areas that will allow us to infiltrate. We've investigated the roadway right-of-way. We've investigated underneath the building. It's recommended by a structural engineer due to the configuration of our property and adjacent to a very large retaining wall that allows the theater to drop down next to us. And so therefore, putting any stormwater management underneath the building is not practical due to the existing stormwater system, retaining wall system. And also, we're not going to get any infiltration rates underneath the building that's already compacted. So again, we're back to looking at green or blue roof systems. What we've been able to achieve is, without utilizing the meadow condition, asking for a waiver of that, without being able to infiltrate, asking for a waiver of that requirement, and those are the only two waivers that we're asking for with regards to stormwater management, we're able to provide water quality through a green roof system, water retention on the roof through a blue roof system, and all your other components within the stormwater code are complied with. Rate control, we've been able to reduce the rate of the stormwater leaving the site, and we've been able to reduce the stormwater as it's extending into North Wayne Ave to make it a better situation than it is today. Again, there's...
Can you just define blue roof? I know green roof, and you talked about that. Blue
It
roof,
means
what
we're
is that?
we're basically storing water on the roof, allowing it to discharge like we do in a standard conventional stormwater management basin, where we use small orifices and so forth, or weirs and so forth. We use small holes to control the amount of water leaving the site. So it's storing water in the green medium.
They didn't have a third floor. I'm sorry.
Dan went through the overall site, the access points. I think everybody understands that, but if you'd like me to re-review that, I'd be happy to.
I just have a question about this meadow comparison to it being a natural meadow. If you do that, how far off are you with your blue and green roofs from what would be a meadow condition? I mean, can you give me a % of the stormwater you're storing / evaporating from the roof?
No, but I can prepare those documents and
I
bring
mean,
it back to you.
I think it would just be helpful, because if you said 20%, it's going to mean a whole lot more to me than if you say, no, that's going to take care of 65% of all the rain that comes from the sky. My other question is, and I know that you're talking about infiltration, but a lot of our stormwater is storage tanks and slow release. And I don't see why you couldn't do that under the parking area.
Well, we're actually doing that on the roof system.
I know, but I don't think you're going to get anywhere near the number that we're going to want.
I can investigate that for you. And
Yeah, I mean, you said you couldn't infiltrate there, but couldn't you have a storage tank like they did at Luella that'll then, slowly reduce, it'll reduce, it won't be a deluge, it'll be
Correct.
slow.
One of our challenges on this particular property and anybody along North Wayne Avenue, if they go through redevelopment, there's actually no stormwater conveyance piping within North Wayne Ave. North Wayne Ave pitches all the way down to Lancaster Avenue from the top of the street all the way down. So, and that's why you'll see all the buildings that if you walk along the curb line, you'll see roof drains that actually pop out through the curb. So all that roof runoff is flowing into North Wayne and draining down. Challenge with putting it in the back is that I don't have a positive discharge for water. There's nowhere I can put it. I'd have to potentially pump it, and that's not practical from managing a stormwater standpoint. So again, what we do is we elevate the stormwater and put it on the roof.
But couldn't you just discharge it the way it's currently discharged and it goes out into the curbs and down the road?
That's correct, and that's what we're doing with the green roof.
No, if you put a storage.
It'd be below grade.
No, it wouldn't. I mean,
Say if it was below grade, you could still pump it. I mean, they did that in the middle school for 80, 100 years or so. So you could do it. You could even pump it up to the blue roof if you wanted to after it dissipated.
Yeah.
Say one thing here. The trouble with doing a detention retention in that parking lot is that any of those scenarios need truck access. And the alley easement just doesn't allow for large enough trucks to get back there to service those detention retention scenarios.
You're speaking about servicing the tank once it's in, not putting it in the first place.
That's correct.
But you just
Thank
mean
you.
for somebody cleaning it out? Why couldn't they go through
How-
the front door and out the back?
how often do we have trucks pumping out stormwater?
Uh-oh.
All of the things we put under South Wayne parking lot don't have trucks coming to pump them out, do they?
We don't pump stormwater from those systems, but they will have to be maintained in a few years. They will need trucks to do so. I don't think, just in my opinion, I don't think the ability to get a truck back there is really the issue, because to pump out a tank, there's ways to do that. They have booster pumps and all that stuff, right? We can pump for hundreds of feet. I think more of it is, and we discussed this, so if you did put something in the parking area and it filled, it could be like a bubble up, you know how we have, right? So that possibility, I just want the board to know, there are possibilities. I'm not saying they're all feasible, but there are possibilities to do that. The green roof does act, that is their infiltration. I do have a request, I'm sorry, while I'm talking. So there was a list of waiver requests, and I think it would be best if Mr. Falcone or the engineer went over them, because originally there were 4 stormwater waiver requests. I think from what you said, you were able to address one of them, but
Can I
there
suggest
was,
that we wait until the
yeah,
end
but
to
at
do
one
that?
point, I would like the board to hear that A through H waiver requests, maybe perhaps -1.
They may have more. I just want to get through all the questions and stuff, and then they can have a final waiver request list for us. I suspect that there may be some additional waiver requests.
Are there? Are there more? Or you-
Sorry, yeah, if you could go on, that'd be great, thank you.
Unless there's any other additional site questions. I think Dan went through all the site access points, showed, this is showing our frontage along North Wayne Avenue. We come and access the back through the 13-foot wide alley. There's the area behind the buildings, only 34 feet wide, but that allows sufficient area for people to park and to access the back of the building.
So speaking of that back building access, it was my understanding that the parking, not parking back there, a big issue was whether or not the other businesses can have the same use of that back alley that they use, which includes trucks. So if you can get a truck to do a delivery for the Tiger Shop or the bookstore, wouldn't you be able to get a truck to come and clean out your stormwater?
My understanding, Commissioner, is that With respect to accessing that, and this is what we've just heard through the Planning Commission from the neighbors, so they can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, is that the trucks don't come behind, they go up the alley that is next to, Dan, can you put the site plan up? I'm sorry, I'm going to pull up the site plan. So my understanding from the neighbors and from what we understand from our client is that the trucks access kind of the rear of the buildings through a separate easement that exists. This is looking north on North Wayne Avenue. So it's a little driveway. They come back, and then specifically, like, say, with respect to trash, the business owners wheel their trash up here because the trash truck itself cannot make it down behind the buildings. And then one of the conversations we had as well with the Planning Commission, they asked a very similar question, was that how do people take deliveries for beer and food? And the testimony, it's not really testimony, but I guess the commentary at the Planning Commission was the trucks stop out front, and they take it from essentially North Wayne Avenue into the buildings. But that the easement area, and I think I should probably clarify, there's what's on paper for the easement, which exists back where the blue hashing is on the plan. That's what would be kind of the legal easement area. Folks don't use it, they flip it, the current use of the easement, and they park back and they take access in this area. So part of our initial discussion with the Planning Commission when we had our driveway coming through this area was the neighbors asked if we could open up additional access so that they could continue to use the easement as it has historically been used, but not how it's written on paper. And so what you see here is a revised plan. It was presented to the Planning Commission, but I think it's important at least to explain why it's shaped the way it is. This area here allows for access into the parking area. Previously, this was a wall. So the access was driven back through here. So this is open, this is just striping, that is not wall. So now cars can kind of access the parking spaces underneath the building as they historically do, and people can park as they do. But I think, just for clarity, the actual written legal easement is the blue hashed area. That may not be meaningful to anyone, but I want to, in case there's any questions, why are you accessing here? You don't have the right. That was a request from the neighbors, is that people keep doing what they're doing.
While you're back there and have this photo up,
Yep.
You have one ADA spot and
Yes.
3 non. How are you going to fight that out with the residents?
So there's actually no requirement for the ADA spot with a development this size. This was something that was discussed with Mr. Rice's office during the Planning Commission process, or maybe the zoning process. It was the zoning hearing board. Because of the number, there's no need to designate an ADA space in the back. However, we are going to keep it there, and then if there is one user that would need it, we would assign that spot to that.
But the 4th resident couldn't use an ADA spot if they're not ADA.
I'm sorry?
Like, so you have
It wouldn't
4
be
apartments,
understood.
3 people have a parking place, and 1 person won't be allowed to park there because it's ADA.
That would only be if we ultimately signed
So
it.
you just take the signs
We
down?
would take the signs down.
Gotcha.
There's no,
I want to make a slight correction. So by code, the ADA spot is required, but because of the number of total spots, that ADA spot is allowed to be used by a non-ADA resident or driver.
Doesn't have to be designated.
Got it.
So-
And
so-
those
so no,
spots would only be for
it
resident
could-
use?
It could,
Is that
correct. And that's per the variance of the zoning hearing
Okay.
board.
Thank
that
you.
was
That was
discussed.
helpful.
That was discussed, that very question, in front of the zoning hearing board, and we did need interpretation because we had no way to answer that otherwise.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
If that's the presentation, then I have some questions.
Okay.
I wanted to very briefly get started by kind of answering some of the questions that we heard from the residents earlier, and just explain the process a little bit, and then I'm going to dive in and ask you guys some questions. So before we got here today, there's obviously been a lot that has already happened, but going forward, this is going to proceed in at most 3 additional steps, or I should say at least 3 additional steps probably. Today's caucus, we're not voting on anything today. If we absolutely love the applicant's presentation and we would love to give them the approval, we cannot do that today's caucus. If we hated the application and we want to say no, we can't do that either. This is just caucus. We're just hearing what they have to say, asking questions. The next meeting will be a preliminary hearing at which there will be a vote. The result of that vote will either be an approval, a denial, or an approval with conditions. If there are conditions, they have to be based on requirements or standards that are contained in and authorized by our subdivision and land development ordinance and our zoning ordinance. We cannot consider factors when we're evaluating the application other than the factors that are contained in our SALDO, our zoning ordinance, and the various state and federal regulations and laws that are out there. It makes total sense to believe that we can just say no because we don't like the cut of the applicant's jib, or because we want to preserve existing businesses, because we want to adhere to the township's comprehensive plan. That all makes total sense. It is, however, inconsistent with the law. We have to evaluate the ordinances as they stand out there right now. So I absolutely want to hear everything that residents have to say. It's incredibly important to us to hear your feedback as much as possible. If you can look at the plans that have been proposed, compare them to the ordinances that we have, to state laws that are out there, to federal laws that are out there, that is what is most useful to us because it prompts us to ask questions. I will say that I have received by email some ad hominem attacks. Those are frankly not helpful. And I also want to make the point that if the applicant either gets a denial or the applicant gets a approval with conditions that he chooses not to pursue and he wants to take an appeal, it will make his appellate path simpler for him if there's a whole bunch of emails that I have saying mean things about him, because then he'll say that it was a bad faith denial. It's not going to be. The emails that I've gotten are not really ones that are going to affect me one way or the other, but I just want to let you guys know that that's not helpful to the process. The rest of it is, that's not. I also wanted to comment, we are unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your outlook, not able to pause development. There are timelines that are included in the municipality's planning code. If we do not have the hearings on the dates that we are required to have the hearings, there is a deemed approval. The applicant gets their plan approved with no conditions whatsoever. They get all the waivers that they requested. So as much as I'd love to slow the process down, we hear this a lot, you're going too fast, we haven't had time to have the conversations. If we do say we're just going to pump the brakes on this, we'll come back to this in 6 months, the applicant gets the building and it will be built before we even get back here, or there'll be shovels in the ground anyway. So with that, I have a bunch of questions for the applicant. I can dive right in. Number one, can you tell me, with respect to the building height, how was mean grade calculated in this case?
It's calculated as the average of the 4 corners of the building. So 2 on North Wayne Ave and then 2 in the back of the property.
I kind of
Can I ask you to speak up just a little bit? You're tall,
Sure.
so you're not near the mic.
I kind of guessed that when I saw the plan. There are rules for calculating mean grade in our ordinance. You have to calculate it at 20-foot intervals going all the way around the perimeter of the building. I don't think that was what was done in this case, and that may impact the height of the building. I'm going to ask that you just go back and double check, and when you come back next time, you can tell us whether the numbers are still the same. Maybe you can go higher, maybe you can go lower, I don't know. Sheet A102 of the architectural plan shows roof decks for the residential apartments, and those are the ones that we've seen up on the board a couple of times. You do not have a copy of our code in front of you, but I see people who are writing things down. Section 280-53, spot 9, spot C, provides that every use other than a motor vehicle parking lot and outdoor dining shall be completely enclosed within a building. Is there a reason that those roof decks are not a use as that ordinance defines the term?
I'd have to go back and the specifics of that code. I need to review that.
That's A-okay. When you come back, I would like either an explanation of why roof decks are not uses under the code, or you guys may want to ask for an additional waiver there. You are right now asking for a driveway waiver. Why do you need the waiver for the size of the driveway?
Maybe I'll let, well, that's due to the alley access easement. That's back here, and that's 13, let me get the exact dimension, that's 13.8 feet, which is smaller than the code requires.
Do you know the reason for the code requirement in the first place? We asked for 25 feet, I think. Do you know why we asked for 25 feet? I don't know. It's not a trick question.
I believe it's the vehicle pathway and then a pedestrian walkway next to it, but I'll let the engineer respond.
So we're asking for a waiver of this. This was identified in the consultant review letters. This is an existing condition. The alley that proceeds back to the back area is 13.8 feet wide. The requirement for two-way use, the minimum width of an entrance and exit drives for two-way use is 25 feet.
Got it. So this would end up essentially being a one-way driveway then?
We're not changing or proposing to change the use of the area for the 13.8-foot alley and also the area behind there. So it's acting as a two-way movement right now, except you can't do it at the same time.
Okay, that's a fair correction. This is like a road in Ireland. They're technically two roads or two ways, but one guy has to pull over to the other side. The difference is, however, that you're going to be bringing in 4 people who are going to be living there, and they're going to be going in and out at all different times. Okay, I think that answers my question. I appreciate that. During construction, how is access in the rear going to be maintained to the businesses? How is that easement in the rear going to be maintained to the businesses who use it? And then similar question, how is access going to be maintained along the sidewalk for pedestrians?
So we have prepared a sidewalk closure plan and a construction encroachment plan for the area in front of our property. We are not proposing to close off the access to the rear of the property at all. We're not proposing any construction entrances or utilization for construction, the alley and the area behind those buildings. All construction access is proposed through the front of the property off of North Wayne Avenue.
What's the sidewalk closure plan? And do we have a copy of it?
It was submitted to the township. However, I don't believe it was disseminated to the commissioners because it wasn't part of the official review. We were asked to put that together. However, I don't believe it was reviewed by the consultants or submitted to the commissioners. We can certainly, as part of this caucus, we have questions or issues that we need to resolve. We will submit that as part of the next round.
I'd like to see that in with your documents. That would be helpful.
Go ahead.
So that sheet, I don't see the legend. What sheet is that?
So again, this isn't submitted.
8 of 11.
So it would be 8 of 11. So the set that you're reviewing is less sheets than what's on the screen today.
Okay. Could we just get a copy of anything that you've shown us today? That would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. One of the things that we did for another project that was around here was there was a citizen group that got together and worked with the developer on building a facade that was acceptable to the residents. Is that something that you would have the appetite and willingness, and this is really the question for you. I'm seeing a nod. Okay. You sought a variance from received a variance from section 280-32 spot C, and that kind of stuck out to me because that's in our R5 zoning district. Can you explain that? And again, this may be a we'll get back to you question. That's a-okay. I'm just.
I'll look into that.
Okay. I'm not looking for an answer right now. I'll just tell you, the way I read it is section 280-32 spot C deals with loading, and it is for loading specifically within the R5 zoning district. I would have thought that section 280-104 applied, which is the general loading requirements. If you review that and you decide that the variance that you have for loading is not going to be effective because you're not in the R5 residence district, then my question is going to be, what are we doing about loading in that area? Do you have to go back to the zoning board? The rest of my questions will probably occur to you. I have a bunch of questions about the environmental assessment, so this is probably mostly going to be directed to you. And again, same as I've said before, largely in putting my questions out there, you may want to bring the consultant next time, or you may want to just talk to them afterwards, but you can come on up to the mic. Why is it that only 2 borings were done inside?
So there were six borings total.
Yeah, and this is an old dry cleaners, so it feels like the logical place that you're going to find the majority of the infiltration would probably be interior to the building. Why 2 in the interior? Why 2 both in the back of the building and the rest of them outside?
So I think as far as the 2 inside, I believe they did the borings where they thought the chlorinated solvents were either stored or they were otherwise would have been used. I know in the back there was a concern about a potential underground storage tank underneath a shed.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the specifics of, why here, why there, I think that the consultant who, actually decided on where they went would have to answer that question.
One of the quotes from the air report is that additional sub-slab samples should be collected biased towards any potential pathways for soil vapor migration. Have any such sub-slab samples been collected since the time of the original borings?
No, as far as I know, they have not.
Jack, real quick, and when was that? When were those, I know you said it was before you...
October of 2025 was one, and January of 2024 was the groundwater. I'm sorry, I said groundwater, and I meant to say soil, but that kind of leads into my next question. The soil borings discovered no groundwater, and I did go back and I looked, and January of 2024, when the samples were taken, was historically dry. So I guess it's a little more plausible to me that there was genuinely no water there at the time, but everybody here knows that there is just like a creek that runs underneath the entirety of North Wayne. There's a ton of groundwater that goes there. Has any sampling been done of groundwater since?
As far as I know, no. This is the only sampling that's been done of groundwater.
You mentioned the vanadium-thallium mix-up in your original comments. First off, I want to make sure that I understand. Thallium is, in fact, what was found. That's what's in the table, but it's not what's in the report, correct?
Right. The table shows the exceedance of thallium. It's right next to vanadium on the table. Vanadium did not show an exceedance on the table.
Right.
So my sense, and again, you have to talk to the consultant, is when they put the narrative together, there was a typo or an oversight. But
I'm going to ask that somebody explain that, who's not you, who actually made the error, can explain the error.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to ask, the report says that the vanadium is fine, we can just leave it there because it's probably naturally occurring. Is that the same with respect to thallium, which, based on my advanced degree in Googling, I can tell you is a rat poison? So do we just leave it there? Is that a remediation that needs to be done? Does that change the recommendations? Is it just a typo? They said vanadium, they meant to say thallium, and it's fine to leave the thallium.
yeah, again, I think the technical specifics of that, the consultant can answer. I do think, though, again, we may have similar degrees. Thallium, some of that can be a naturally occurring metal. I think the consultant could speak to that. But again, they determined with the cap over top, there would be no risk of exposure to with, direct contact to humans, whether that's vanadium or thallium.
Got it. Where can I find the PA DEP maximums that are listed? Because they're given in the tables. When I went online, I saw that all the state figures that I was able to find are listed in milligrams per kilogram for soil, but all of the state maximums that are listed in the table are given in micrograms per cubic meter. And since I don't know the density of the soil, I can't convert between the two.
Yeah, so those should be in Appendix A of DEP's Chapter 250 regulations.
I did look at that. That's not the, they do not give their figures in micrograms per meters cubed.
Okay. I could certainly provide those. Sometimes with DEP's regulations, they incorporate by reference either some other guidance document or tables that they put on their website. But that is no problem to produce those.
If you could give us the actual tables that are the source for the state figures that are in the appendices to the report, that would be incredibly helpful.
Sure.
You discussed a vapor intrusion system as a remedy. I had a couple of questions for you about that. The first one that just came to me, though, is wouldn't you be venting PCE into the restaurants next door?
Based on the reports, I don't think they would. My understanding of the way the systems work, there's kind of passive systems, which basically rely on physical barriers, and then an active system, if it's needed, would kind of add fans, and it is supposed to direct it to the outdoor air, not the not neighboring buildings. As far as if you wanted the specifics of the design to, ease any concerns of, will that mean it's just vented next door? I'm sure there's a multitude of technical spec sheets out there that show how the systems work and should be designed to make sure that doesn't happen, as well as the consultant could definitely speak in greater detail.
Well,
but they are designed to make the vapor go to the outdoor ambient air.
Could you also come and inform us about what happens when it's out in the air? Does it go up the road to somebody's house? Does it settle on our grass?
It basically dilutes in the ambient air. It's only really a issue when it's concentrated in the indoor spaces.
But there's outdoor dining immediately adjacent to this site. And so my concern is that while I recognize that you're not literally pumping it into Teresa's or Christopher's or one of the other restaurants that are adjacent to this site, then you're still putting it into the atmosphere nearby. And what are you doing to the diners that are adjacent to this?
Yeah, this is not a situation where it's almost like a smokestack from a factory or anything like that. But again, I think consultant, or if we can provide more technical information to explain why these work and why they are the accepted method to deal with VOCs in the indoor air.
Yeah, I'm putting you in a tough position, which I've been put in many a time by people sitting up here and judges and others. Like, you've got to explain what your expert witness really should be explaining, so I apologize for that. But also, you said it's not like a smokestack, but how is it different? Because you've got essentially a pipe that's venting chemicals out of the pipe, and it's going to be in the atmosphere. Is it that it's lighter than air and so it won't go back down, or is it that it will go back down but it's going to be dispersed so much that it's fine, the dose makes the toxin, or what?
Yeah, I think it is the composition, because it is extremely light, my understanding of vapor, but it's not at some massive level that it stays in the ambient air such that it could be breathed in by someone. But
you said that you could provide technical specs for this. One of the revisions that I think needs to happen to the application in order to make it approvable is that we need to see as a component of the application the remediation that is proposed. I hear what you're saying in terms of the next building needs to be built before you can get to a final determination of what the infiltration system is going to be or what the remediation has to be. Like, I've heard that. The reality, though, is that there's PCE in the soil. And so even if you tear out all the structural members of the old buildings, and even if there's a lot of PCE infiltration in there, there's still the risk that you're going to have contaminant in the air. And I just don't think that the board is going to have the appetite to run the risk that you build the building and there's still stuff in the air or the soil or anything else. I would like to see, as a component of the land development application, the remediation that's proposed, as opposed to an unenforceable promise that afterwards we will come back and we'll do something. Which wasn't a question, but it's a broad hint. My question for you, though, is that do you know if there's any CERCLA or RCRA liability for the PCE or for the thallium?
Yeah, I mean, environmental laws impose pretty broad, strict liabilities on owners of buildings. That's why there's plenty of incentive to deal with it to make sure it's mitigated.
Does CERCLA permit encapsulation like you proposed, or does CERCLA require that you remove the affected soils?
So because the soils are below, the soil concentrations were below DEP's statewide health standards, there would be, the soils wouldn't necessarily need to be removed unless there was some contaminated media. I mean, if the contamination was above the standards. But the soil standards were below the soil concentrations were below DEP's statewide health standards.
On the one hand, yes, absolutely. The only evidence that we have says that, and the absence of evidence is not evidence. On the other hand, there are only 2 borings that have been done, and the vaporous samples that we do have suggests that there might be more. And I only say that because the expert says you should do more subsurface borings. If there are additional borings that are done in the ground and we discover that there's additional PCE in the soils, then is there a threshold? Put it this way, if there's more than 100 pounds of PCE in the soil, then does that require something more than encapsulation?
There's other steps that you could do to deal with it, through removing the soils. You can also go through Pennsylvania's Act 2 program, which is a voluntary cleanup program. So there would be methods to deal with it. As far as, our consultant could outline some specifics in great detail if you so desire.
Okay. Has any testing been done of the existing building materials?
As far as I know, no. And I don't think in the reports they tested the actual building materials themselves.
When you say that we need to wait for the new building to do the vapor testing, is that because the hypothesis is that there is PCE in the existing structure, and by removing the structure and replacing it, you will get rid of that PCE and there will no longer be vaporous PCE? Or is there some other hypothesis for that?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm trying to figure out why we would need to wait until the new building is constructed in order to decide what the remediation method is. And my guess of your hypothesis was that there's infiltrated tetra PCE in the building members of the existing building, that they are off-gassing into the air, and by removing the existing building members, you will remove the contamination source, and as a result, you will not have PCE in the air going forward, and that the subsurface PCE contamination is not present in sufficient amounts to off-gas into the air in amounts that exceed the residential numbers.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Got it. But there's been no testing of the existing structural members to confirm that hypothesis?
No, and that would be tested. That would be tested at some point. And I think part of the hypothesis, too, is obviously there's a commitment to install the barrier that could deal with it. But if it doesn't, you could install fans, which kind of turn that passive system into an active vapor intrusion system.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I've given you a lot of homework, I know.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I had one last, I'm not even going to ask it as a question. I'm going to give you another broad hint, and it is not environmental. I said early on that I've received some ad hominem attacks. I do not care about them. They're not going to impact what I do at all. And I'm sure the board has received similar things. It's not going to impact what any of them have to do either. That being said, the one thing that I've heard through the rumor mill that does perhaps impact the approvals or conditions that could be imposed on this is the rumor that the property is being marketed for sale. One of the reasons that that is relevant, the primary reason that's relevant, is because there have been some promises that were made at the planning commission level that the building could be built, and I'm going to exaggerate because I don't remember the exact number of months, but we can demolish this building and build the new one in like 15 minutes. If we were to impose a condition of approval that that's the timeline that got adhered to, I think that that would make this unsaleable, because I frankly don't think that you would be able to do that, if I'm being honest with you. I know that nobody else could do that. That being said, I'm going to ask the question. It is not something that you have to answer now. It is not something that has to stay the same. I bought my house one day. I'm going to sell my house one day. I'm not selling it for right now, but like that's going to change at some point in the future. And I get that decisions get made. So that being said, I would be interested in knowing at some point in the future if there's a decision or an appetite to sell the site.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this, and I'm happy to answer what I think might lead to this question, actually, is no. I bought this with the intent of putting my businesses on the second floor and really making this a building that I am here for the long term. I build homes throughout the main line. I've built 25 homes in the last 3 years. I have more ongoing. I have 7 projects going right now. I want to put a design showroom. I have a title insurance company. I have a home and auto insurance company. I bought this with the intention of making this my place to be for a long time. That said, recently, after being attacked online, being attacked here today, I was called a pedophile online on Saturday, I really felt at some point that enough's enough. I want to be part of the community, and I'm being relentlessly attacked for trying to put my businesses here. If someone wanted to buy me out and make this go away, I would do it, because I have a daughter, I have a family. I don't want to be relentlessly attacked for trying to be part of be the community. So I threw that out there when I was talking to someone one time. You know, I've thought about it more. I really want to be here. I do so much business on the main line. I have made myself here, right? I didn't come from a lot. I've built everything I have. I've put my life savings into this. I've been here trying to put this building together and be part of this community. I have a lot of businesses that are local and here, and I wanted to make this my spot. So if I can get approved, no, absolutely. I want to be here. That's why I bought this originally.
Thank you. Those are the questions that I have. I really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for coming out. Members of the public, I really appreciate the things that you guys had to say early on. We will take them all under advisement. I appreciate your time as well.
Yeah. Can I
That's
just
just
add
the end of
something,
me
Commissioners?
talking. You guys get to come and talk afterwards.
Can I just add something?
Yes, thank you,
So
Mr.
this
Norsini.
plan was not submitted to us, the township, just so you know. So if we had it, you would have had it, but we did not receive it.
Yeah, and you guys said you're going to send all the things that you showed today. Okay. At this time, we can have public comment on this development, but your comments are to the Board of Commissioners. It's not a question and answer. So if anyone would like to speak.
Good evening. My name is Mary Packer. I live at 27 Fairview Drive. I've been before you before, and I was before the Planning Commission. I'm repeating my points because I think this is an extremely important issue. As regards the town itself, our architectural feel, maintaining consistency, I think we have a serious parking problem. A serious parking problem. Our survey, not completed. Our taxpayers have a problem with congestion, noise, overdevelopment. We have condos going in. We have 25 homes going on Mrs. Hamilton's. Turn the corner, wherever you go. I know we're not allowed to say slow down. Still can't figure out why we can't, but I guess we can't. You guys can't, I certainly can't. I think there's a lot here to digest, and it should be thoughtful. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that on North Wayne Avenue, we have a group of merchants who have committed themselves to our community. Those that I've talked to tell me that the alley behind them is pretty darn difficult to work with. You know, 2 cars can't pass, deliveries. It's a lot of, not inconvenience, but it's difficult to work with. So we are now going to subject North Wayne Avenue to the destruction of 2 structures and redeveloping them. These people are going to lose business hand over fist. And they've established themselves here. They have customers that want to do business in their stores. And I just think we should be thinking about the taxpayers as well as the merchants that already have committed to our town. So for what that's worth, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paola Coppola, and I own Paola's Pizzeria in Wayne on North Wayne Avenue.
Can you move the microphone just a little
Sorry.
closer? Thank you.
I already congratulate Mr. Hogwarts. I'm sorry if I don't say your name right, and welcome to the community. I love the project. I love everything about it. I know we can do nothing about the historical side of it, which I get it. My concern is exactly what the young lady, Mrs. Packer, said. This is a big project, and it is going to take a long time if everything goes well. Otherwise, it could take even longer. So they are going to take over North Wayne Avenue. As you guys know, it's very congested as it is. So that's a big issue for us, and some of us might not make it, seriously, because, and the other issue that I just heard about it now is about the environmental issue. That's another problem for our customers. If they start hearing those things, they might not want to come in. They might be scared, whatever the case. My other issue is the alley. We're stuck on that alley because no one knows how difficult it is behind that alley. And putting those apartments is an issue. Especially, we have people parking to pick up whether my food, Teresa's, or Christopher's. They find a spot right at the alley. They park there for a half hour, whatever. One comes, one goes, because there's no parking. So my concern is the tenants. If there's an emergency, they won't be able to get out. There's not enough parking for us as it is. It's a mess. If you guys would just come in and just look at it, you'll know what I mean. I can't even describe it, how congested. Our trash picks up, goes in the back, can't turn, so goes back, it takes the trash and gets out again. So that's an issue. If there's a trash, if the alley is blocked, our trash does not get picked up. So we've got to wait another couple of days. So I'm just asking to do the right thing. Do the right thing for us, for the business owners, for the community. Just do the right thing. That's what I'm here for. So, but I wish everybody luck. I wish him luck. I hope that you succeed and get what you like. I'm sorry that you get emails, but that's it. I'm more concerned about my business, and I've been there for 30 years. I would like to be there for a lot longer if I can. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for listening. And sorry about my accent. I can't speak very well.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Michael Scaro. I'm the other half of Paolo's Pizzeria. I'm the husband. Anyway, my only concern, and me making a fool out of myself, sorry about my English anyway, is the fact that I've been there, we've been there for so many years, and I know without a fact that those walls in those buildings are like paper thin. Now, my concern is once they start demolishing those two buildings, the other ones on the side, vis-a-vis the Tiger Shop and the bookstore, is that going to affect those structures? Because you don't, once you start tearing it down and something happens to those buildings, once it started, that's it, we're done. There's no going back. So again, like I said, we've been there for so long, and sometimes I can hear it, the guys from Teresa's. That's how thin those walls are. So you throw those buildings down, I don't know. That's all I wanted to say. Good evening.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Dow, 302 Audubon Avenue. I'm also on the Planning Commission for almost 2 years now, so just wanted to come listen to some of the additional public comment and give some additional context to several meetings we had and conversations we heard
Thank you.
at the Planning Commission. And really, I think there's two large buckets here. I think one category is certainly project-specific for this site and the unique implications of this proposal. I think the much bigger, higher risk, higher opportunity concern and category is the Wayne Master Plan and Vision for Wayne study that's currently underway. I think we recently completed the 10-year Radnor plan, and I feel like participation from the community in that effort was inadequate and not representative of a true cross-section of our residents, and that's not a fault of anyone in particular conducting the study or not, but I think sometimes it takes a project like this to trigger a certain level of attention and engagement. And I think given some of Commissioner Larkin's comments around the boundaries of what we're able to consider and opine on and the ordinance implications, there's a real urgency to get that vision for Wayne completed and to get it done in a thorough manner. There was a Wayne master plan done in 2006. That master plan led to 42-foot building height recommendations, among many others. And most residents opposing this project have asked, does it have to be 3 stories? Well, this project's, I think, 4 feet shorter than that 42-foot building height. So I just think there's a real urgency to get that Wayne master plan right, and to judge its comprehensiveness by a true representation and participation from the community, not relative to other sort of typical percentages of survey respondents, done by urban planning elsewhere. As far as this project specifically, I'm very torn. My wife actually just told me today she signed the petition against this project. But, I go back and forth on it myself. I don't think the unanimous Planning Commission recommendation is as straightforward as it sounds. There was a lot of deliberation, and as you know, there are a lot of kind of constraints around what can be considered. There are some things that I think are very commendable. I think there were many iterations. The increased thickness of the green roof to mitigate stormwater concerns and delay that runoff is a substantial improvement, and that was made thicker and reinforced through the rounds of conversation. I think the 3rd floor setback is meaningful and is not something required in our ordinances. If they wanted to build 38 feet all straight up at the sidewalk line, they could, and they've set it back to sort of mitigate some of that presence. And I think the alleyway in the back, trying to balance historical precedent and sort of legal easement as written in the deed, was commendable by the project team for at least trying to find that balance and listen to feedback. So I think they've been pretty receptive all along, especially to the comment that was made around taking more input and revising the facade design to feel more integrated into the community. So, you know, overall, my personal assessment after listening to many rounds of other testimony from the project team is that they do have sort of the right intentions, the right willingness to listen to the community. Whether this project is everyone's ideal project or not for that spot on North Wayne Avenue, I think is a different question. But, you know, overall, I think they're trying to make it work, and we also have to try to let the town evolve in a thoughtful way. I'm really much more focused on the Vision for Wayne master plan and the outcomes and changes to the ordinances of that. And that goes beyond North Wayne Avenue to the whole Wayne Business Overlay District. But yeah, I'll go back and forth on this project, and I'll talk to my wife more this evening. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Ellis. I'm the owner of Teresa's Cafe. We've talked extensively about the project, and my only concern is, as Paula from Pizza Shop is, the alleyway and having residents driving back and forth through the alleyway. Majority of the time, I don't even park back there. I have 2 buildings, and it's so difficult to park back there. The easement, which they talked about, went right through our parking, which we've been parking back there, and previous tenants to us have been parking back there since the 1940s. I understand why they want to do the apartments as part of funding the whole building, but that building is 3 times the size of the existing buildings, which adds a huge amount of congestion to North Wayne Avenue, which is already completely full. As we all know, probably everyone here knows, lunchtime, no one comes to us. Can't get in there, can't park, you know. It's changed. When I first opened here 29 years ago, it's a whole different world now. We had a hard time opening up, you know, with what we wanted to do back in 1997. So now you're going to allow 3 times the building over the existing square footage, which I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that, or we just accept it because that's what's allowed. But having the apartments upstairs, they're going to be smelling everything from the restaurants. We've had people at the suburban building complain to us about our cooking smells coming into the building. Imagine what these people living in the apartments up there are going to feel like. And driving back there and parking, they have to turn around, I guess, in their little spot underneath that part of the building, turn around to drive back out. What happens when somebody is coming in? I had to back all the way down the other day because somebody was coming in and back into my spot. It's a nightmare. So I don't know if there's anything that you can look at for the tenants of the apartments, whether there's any kind of regulations of access for them to be able to get in there and out of there. Because what about a fire truck? I mean, I think that was kind of the point somebody was saying about the width of the alleyway. Obviously, we have fire access from the front of the building, sprinkler systems. They can't get back there. Fire truck can never get back there. But that's the way this was built many years ago. It was built, I believe ours was built in 1940. I'm not sure about when this building was built, but now this is a new building. You're completely tearing it down and starting over the new building. You have to look at access. I mean, when they built down on Lancaster Avenue, they have plenty of access behind them, even though their alleyway is still small, but they have much more access than something like this. Pretty much all I can say, because a lot of the things that you brought up earlier, we can't ask questions, but I would like you to look at the amount of square footage they're looking to put in here.
You can absolutely ask questions. You can absolutely say whatever you want to, and we will be guided by what you tell us.
Okay.
My point is that you guys should understand that we do not have unfettered discretion. So
Right.
when you say do the right thing, take care
No, I
of us,
understand
that
that
kind
part
of
of it.
thing, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that everybody understands we don't get to just say we're taking your side against the villainous developer.
I fully understand that. My biggest question is, how can you allow 3 times the square foot on the current footprint with lack of parking? You know, there is no parking in Wayne. We all see it. Look at the overview. I mean, the parking lot across the street's full. You have SEPTA parking, which is generally full. You know, it's really, it's been an ongoing issue since the day I opened, or way before I opened, about the parking issue in Wayne. We know it. We need a parking garage desperately. And something like this is adding to it. And what happens when he decides to move out with a 5,800 square foot on the second floor? It's always been a question the zoning board used to ask. I guess they don't ask it anymore. So, but thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
How you doing? Andy Dickerson, also from Teresa's Cafe. I will not repeat what my partner said, just so you know. Don't want to waste anybody's more time. I will compliment the project group. They have worked with us. They moved the entrance to the garage. They are willing to work with the easements, history, etc. The new rendering of the facade was an improvement over the glaring glass we saw at the last Planning Commission meeting. I would like to echo some of the Planning Commissioner's comments. You know, we're all a little torn. Progress is good, but it has to be the right progress. My fear of this project is the harbinger of taking teeth out of any future comprehensive plan. You know, when you guys approve whatever comes, whether there's more resident input, like he said, is needed or not, if this project goes through under the current ordinances, as it should if they do what the ordinance currently state, who's to say that hiring a great law firm won't get variance and waivers that seem to be handed out by the lower commissioners, not you guys, the other two groups, all the time. So that will turn my street into a war zone for a long time. Our street, all of our street. I'm not against this project. I just wanted to make sure that it's consistent moving forward, and it's not going to be one building owner after another wanting to put 3 floors up and having a disturbance one after the other. We just had a great music fest. I hope all of us think so. But, you know, that's going to go away if 118 doesn't come back. And the size of that space is small now. It's changed. So, and during the construction, we're going to lose the other fest. We're going to lose Tammy's car show. You know, that's going to be impacted. We're going to lose Halloween. We're going to lose a lot of the things that make, you know, the tree lighting. If this is ongoing during all that, we're going to lose a little of what makes the Village of Wayne unique. And, you know, going back to the earlier resident comment about, you know, it was a historic district. I think it was July 2012 where that street was named part of a National Historic thing. I don't know how these things read, but it seems like you're not supposed to make big changes when you declare something a historic district. So I just want to make sure that this project and all the others moving forward do fit what we are, kind of like we said. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none, thank you for your presentation. We'll have a 5-minute break right now. Thank you.
just wanted to say something. Don't like your project.
Sure we will. I'll let you guys get back to work. Yeah.
Kathy, where is she? I can't see. I got my own. Yeah, it is. Howard, you ready? Howard, you're ready, right? Okay, sorry, back to the meeting. 3B, ordinance 2026-17, introduction. And a second? Who would like to discuss this one? Mr. Rice.
History to this, and there's some, I think, some obvious reasons. Currently, in your zoning ordinance, you have some very general provisions regarding nonconforming uses. Nonconforming uses are uses that exist prior to a new ordinance being adopted, which make them nonconforming, not permitted in the zoning district. There have been a series of zoning hearing board decisions where an applicant has gone in to either expand their existing nonconforming use, and you can get it by special exception, or change one nonconforming use to another nonconforming use by special exception with really not a whole lot of standards to it. Like, you know, what are the standards to that? So, and you have things like nonconforming lots, you have nonconforming uses, you have different variety nonconforming structures. So one of the examples that I'll give you, unnamed but true example, is developer comes in and proposes to scrape the site entirely and wants to rebuild on that site a similar type of a use. Basically, it gets turned down, it gets litigated, and they get their special exception. But they've scraped the site. It's a bare site. It's not like they're taking a building and expanding it or taking a building and changing it to some other use. We have no provision in the zoning ordinance to deal with when somebody voluntarily takes down a building. And the Commonwealth Court has said that if you don't have some provision to deal with that, then they're entitled to a special exception. So a voluntary removal would require the new building to comply with your zoning. I mean, the idea of nonconforming uses is eventually they should go away and your uses should comply with your zoning code. But we've sort of morphed them, and these are old provisions that are in your zoning ordinance. I mean, they go back to the 80s. We let nonconforming uses turn into other nonconforming uses. And we've even had a case where we had a nonconforming use turn into a different nonconforming use, and they expanded that new one by 50%, which, you know, that, and we're still involved in that situation. So Kevin Kachansky and I and Peter Nelson have been talking and working on this for probably over a year. And this is much more restrictive than what's currently in your zoning code. It's going to be more difficult. There's more steps for somebody that wants to continue a non-conforming use. If they want to add on to a building, that's not a big deal. But to take down the building totally and scrape a site, it's going to be much more difficult to just go and get a special exception. So this has been reviewed by the Delaware County Planning Commission. I think your Planning Commission tabled this. Yes. I don't think they've given a recommendation on it at this point. Tonight is introduction, and ultimately it would be advertised per the MPC, and it would come back to the board for a public hearing. So it is a fairly substantial rewrite of what you have on the books, but it's also more restrictive and has more controls over what could happen. Any questions from the board?
I'm sure it's just the way it's written, but a lot of things sort of seem a little bit redundant. One example, let's see. On page 2, you had a non-conforming use may be continued, although such use does not conform to provisions of this chapter or subsequent amendments. Actually, I'm sorry, that's not the right part. Anyway, like, you're the lawyer. It just seemed like a lot of things were repeated more than once.
Well,
And I could get specific for you. I should have written them all down when I was reading through it earlier, but.
Well, there's a general, I mean, in Pennsylvania, and, you know, I thought I would talk about this a little earlier when the crowd was here. You know, Pennsylvania is a very strong property rights state. So it's got these specific rules that if you don't follow the rules, municipalities don't follow the rules, you get into trouble. And the Pennsylvania Supreme Court considers nonconforming uses constitutionally protected. Many court cases, and that's why you can't just say, go away. That's why there's some rights to expand within limits. If your use burns down, you have the right to restore it. That's okay, and that's in here. The thing that we've added, you know, dealt with two situations. One is when you voluntarily take a building down. If you put a new one up, you have to comply with the zoning. And that has not happened in the past. You know, I think when you scrape a site, then you know, because we don't have any way to regulate that, and the Zoning and Hearing Board has routinely granted those special exceptions. So that situation, and then the change from one non-conforming use to another, and then expanding on top of that, we don't address that. So this code, you know, this amendment will address that. It will become more restrictive. So it talks in here about expansion and what the rules are, 28172, structures and uses. Restoration, if your use, structure is wholly or partially destroyed by fire, flood, explosion, what the rules are. Abandonment is an issue. A lot of non-conforming uses or buildings sit not used for a long period of time. Pennsylvania Supreme Court says that by itself is not abandonment. There's got to be something more than that. Under abandonment, 174C is what we've added. Voluntary removal in any manner is deemed an abandonment of all nonconformities. So that is where I voluntarily decided I'm going to knock this building down and put up a new building. Now you have to meet the zoning code in effect at the time. That's a new provision. 175 is use changes. You have currently in your code, you can change one nonconforming use to another nonconforming use by special exception. This adds some criteria in here in terms of health, safety, and welfare. And then nonconforming lots is the last section in here, and that deals with not undersized lots. I don't think Radnor has many situations where there are undersized, unbuilt upon lots. But this provision would permit a person to build on an undersized lot. It would also require in some cases that if there's more than one side by side, you would have to consolidate them. Like if you had, let's say the minimum lot size was 20,000 square feet, and you had two lots side by side, which were only 5,000 square feet. Without a zoning provision, you could build on each one of those 5,000 square foot lots because they're pre-existing non-conforming lots, and there's a deed recorded in media when that lot was created. So this provision would require somebody to combine them, to get as close close as you can to be in a conforming size lot. This is part of the zoning conference we're going to have on nonconformities. You're getting a heads up on nonconformities. But there's a lot of cases on this. There's old plans in every county where lots were laid out. They were called wood lots. Like when you go up in Montgomery and Bucks, they're still there. People would buy them, drive from the city, get their firewood, bring it back, and now developers are buying them up and they want to build on them. And they're tiny. They're like 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, some of these lots. So, you know, we've done some of these ordinances in other municipalities to force these little lots to be combined so you get closer to whatever the minimum lot size. And they're not as non-conforming. So that provision is new also. Now, is there any questions?
So you mentioned the abandonment thing, and now you've taken it to a year. If there's no, if the non-conforming use ceases for a continuous period of 1 year.
It's presumed. It's presumed that it's been abandoned.
It's presumed that it'll be abandoned.
Right.
And is that okay with the way it meshes with state law? You were talking about there was.
Mainly court cases. Pennsylvania Supreme Court has said, there's a lot of ordinances that say currently, if it's abandoned for a year, it's gone. So instead of, it's an absolute, it's just a presumption. So the property owner can come in and say, I haven't been able to get a tenant, I've marketed it, and here's my realtor who's going to testify. So it's just a presumption. You know, you can't just say, no one's been in there for a year, you've lost your non-conforming status. So that's sort of the protection that the courts have given to non-conforming uses, saying that these are constitutionally protected. You can say it's a presumed, but you can't say it's absolutely abandoned. So there's
Got it. I got it.
a lot of cases on that point,
Yeah.
all over the state.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, thank you. Anybody else from the board? Any public comment?
Good evening, Roberta Winters, 326 Williams Road in Bryn Mawr. The reason I am here is because of the language in this ordinance, and I really appreciate the solicitor sharing what he had to clarify this first reading. And having worked, as most of you know, with the Garrett Hill overlay district and so on, I know Garrett Hill in our overlay district is full of many non-conforming properties, and that we did make a lot of provisions in that overlay district to make changes that would allow some of the homes that were non-conforming to perhaps be able to develop further or improve their current situation. And I am concerned that many of those provisions, because of the zoning in Garrett Hill, would be removed, because it says, as you read in the page 6, that all ordinance or parts of ordinances which are inconsistent herein are hereby repealed. So I just want to make sure that the provisions that were made to, as we do want to make sure that we can protect our community and also at the same time provide for some of the development that we thought through that ordinance would make it possible for people to, say, park behind their house or do things, you know, like with the sidewalks and the setbacks and provisions like that, that were, you know, difficult because many of those homes were put before actual zoning was put in Radnor Township.
Yeah,
So-
they were non-conforming
To begin with.
before Garrett Hill
Correct.
zoning was passed. And if you remember, I was involved with the end of the adoption of the Garrett Hill zoning. So, no, the only way this would apply to anything there is if it's non-conforming as to the Garrett Hill zoning ordinance, not anything else.
Thank you,
So if it
sir.
complies with the Garrett Hill, you know, the different parts of it, there's 5 or 6 sections, you're fine. This is not going to impact that at all.
Because it just was not clear on reading this how that was going to
Right.
work. So thank you for your clarification, sir.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
It'll be advertised at a hearing soon.
Thank you.
And back at the next meeting? Or does
Oh.
it have to wait?
Yeah, I think probably July 20th. I think the Planning Commission is going to look at it again. So unless they want to make some kind of substantial change to it. But I'm going to plan on advertising it for the 20th.
So it'll be at the the next PC meeting in July, so we should be ready.
Yeah. Steve, they had it in June too, right?
Correct. They wanted some time to review it internally, and they asked our interim zoning officer to provide some examples, which I'll provide to the board also.
Okay.
All right, thank you. 3C, ordinance 2026-16, introduction, conversion of 4 metered parking spaces on the west side of the Wayne Senior Center to handicap parking spaces. Can I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Chief?
Thank you, Commissioners. We work with the Wayne Senior Center and several of its constituents, and we needed to address handicap accessible parking and try and improve their access to the center. So these 4 spots will be run along the side of the building, right by the main entrance, and allow them a lot better ease and access to that center. And in the evening hours, people utilizing the restaurants will also be able to utilize it. So it's helping everybody in that very busy area.
Thank you. Any public comment on this? All right, seeing none, let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Passes. Next up, 3D, ordinance 2026-14, introduction. Additional of no parking between signs between 215 Trianon Lane and 219 Trianon Lane, consisting of 650 feet. Can I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I have Mike Maratea, our parking supervisor, introduce this, and then just to start it off, it was resident-driven.
Good evening, Commissioners. So this was brought forth to the Staff Traffic Committee with a concern in regards to sight distance. Not sure if you've been familiar with the road, but there's a curve in the roadway, and they had concerns of cars parking on both sides and cars being able to pass. So we went out and surveyed it. We measured the distance to 650 feet on the roadway, and we're requesting to make that one side of the road no parking.
Thank you.
Mr. Maratea, can you tell me about how many parking spaces we'll lose with that?
A guesstimate would probably be about 20, but it is a residential roadway, and there's ample room on the other side.
Thank you.
So, yep.
And does the Trianon neighborhood, most of those houses have driveways?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any public comment? Okay, call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. 3E, ordinance 2026-15, introduction. Implement no parking on the west side of Francis Avenue for the full length of the street. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioners, as you're aware, the street is not an extremely wide street, so based on some mainly public safety reasons, safe travel, we just want to simply have parking on one side of the street, which almost naturally occurs now. So we want to avoid some visitors or some of our peak parking times with some of the development to make sure that trash trucks very importantly, fire and EMS vehicles can get through, and then also for those few snowstorms that the Public Works are able to plow it. There's no opposition from the street that we're aware of.
Thank you. Any questions from board members?
Same question, Chief. About how many spaces are we going to go down with that?
It would be a guess, ma'am. They're not, we don't have them measured out, so it's just the entire length of the street, so I would say roughly 2 per home, so probably 20-some spots that in theory you would be able to utilize.
But you could still be on the other side. It's behind the Wawa in Wayne.
That is correct, Commissioner. Totally able to utilize the other side of the street all the way from the Wawa side back over to West Avenue. So that is still completely in play. This is just making it what I would call more organized and safe.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayatera, this might be for you. Sorry, I bungled your name. Is that block ever fully parked? I mean, are the residents going to feel the difference, right? If you take an entire side of that street?
So in the residential section, they always adhere to that now. It's just naturally been that you park on the side of the street that the houses are. It's more so the concern is down when you come around the bend directly behind the Wawa. Occasionally we get cars that park on both sides of the street where they're almost on the grass on the right-hand side, and it can cause traffic issues as far as bigger trucks getting through. So it shouldn't affect any vehicles or any parking for the residents.
Got it. Thank you.
Any public comment? Okay, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. 3F, Ordinance 2026-18, Introduction, an ordinance of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, amending its Code of Ordinances by repealing Chapter 56, Municipal Authority, and replacing it with a new Chapter 56, Stormwater Authority, signifying the township's intention to establish a stormwater authority in accordance with the Municipality Authority Act, providing for the establishment of stormwater fees and an authorization the township manager to file articles of incorporation with the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in accordance with Section 5603 of the Municipality Authorities Act. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This proposed ordinance, a little bit of history on authorities. The township had created an authority in 1956, and it had, I'm not sure what the role was in the township, but from what I can tell, it was used for sanitary sewer. There were some parks and playgrounds involved. When you create a municipal authority in Pennsylvania, they expire after 50 years. And this one was never revived. So 50 years later, it was amended once in '74, but you still have to do an amendment or it expires. So it expired, and the township is also a member of the RHM Sewer Authority with Haverford and Marple Township. And we appoint members to that, but that handles strictly sanitary sewer downstream of Radnor Township. So this ordinance would create a new stormwater authority that would take over the stormwater planning, stormwater management, and be advisory to the board in a lot of respects. It would be a new authority created under the Authorities Act. You would have to appoint, once approved by the Commonwealth, 5 members. The purposes would help Steve Norsini in many, many ways. It's not in the ordinance, Steve, but you know it would. The purposes would monitor compliance with the township's MS4 permit, which is something that's required by the state and the federal government under the Clean Water Act. collect and transport stormwater runoff from all properties as a service to township residents, businesses, and the institutions. Repair storm sewer piping and systems to protect residents, businesses, and the institutions. I think the township has a handful of fairly substantial projects on the docket for this year and have done many in the past through the funding of the program. Would also reduce runoff and prevent adjacent properties from flooding and erosion and property damage. And that would all continue to be funded by the township stormwater fees. So the first step is to do the ordinance indicating your intention to do this. There'll be a hearing then in 30 days, which would be at your July 20th meeting. There'll be an advertised public hearing. And then we would file the articles of incorporation with Harrisburg. That can be done, I think, within 3 days of the hearing, or any time after 3 days. And then, assuming Harrisburg approves it, then they would have to reorganize. There would be a meeting. The way this is proposed is that they would meet on a quarterly basis, at least initially, more often, depending on who's on the board and the amount of activity. So it's up for introduction tonight, and if the board approves it, it'll be back on your July 20th agenda at an advertised public hearing.
Thank you. Any board comment? Any public comment?
Roberta Winters, again, 326 Williams Road in Bryn Mawr. My question has to do with their ability to raise the fees and the rates. Is that under the authority? Would that, or any increases in those fees be subjected to the Board of Commissioners?
Yeah, they would, right now, the way it's set up, they would make a recommendation. Since it's a board ordinance, it would have to come back to the board. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. 3G, Resolution 2026-83. Establish a public art commission tasked with developing a township public art program and associated legislation and program details.
Hi. I wrote down a few comments because this is an important one to me. I'm bringing this forward. It would be Radnor's first ever public art commission. At its core, the resolution is really about creating opportunities for our community. We're known for such beautiful neighborhoods, outstanding parks, thriving business districts, and strong civic institutions, yet we've never had a formal process for considering how public art might enhance these spaces and further strengthen our sense of place. Public art has the power to transform ordinary spaces into destinations. It can celebrate our history, reflect our community values, inspire creativity, and create gathering spaces that foster connection, whether it's a sculpture in a park, an artistic feature along a trail, or a mural that tells a local story like the one that's just gone up for our 250th American anniversary. But it allows us to incorporate creative elements into new development and throughout our community. This does not establish the art program tonight. It establishes the commission that would do the work necessary to determine whether and how such a program should be implemented. So my hope is that this commission will engage our residents, identify potential locations, develop standards and review processes, and bring recommendations back to this board for considerations. I think it's a natural next step for Radnor, living, so close to Philadelphia, which is a city that's renowned for its public art. It sort of feels like it stops at the border. So I would like to hopefully embrace public art as a way to beautify our public spaces, strengthen our community identity, and create lasting assets for future generations. So this is just really asking us to start that conversation. Hopefully we will recruit and engage some local artistic experts in our community and those who just really care about beautification and art. So I'm grateful to bring this forward, and I hope I have your support.
I think it's great.
Oh, good.
Too. I think it's great. I think, in our whole comp plan or vision of Wayne, the whole bit of, making the town, frankly, walkable, beautiful, interesting. I think this is a tremendous step forward in that regard. As long as I like the art.
That's right. Well, I know that that's always going to be, that's always going to be a sticking point, and I want to acknowledge that. Art is very subjective, but if we were talking about putting one piece of art in our entire community, I would think that would be a major problem to get everybody to agree that it's the perfect piece. But an art program that I think we could envision together, you're going to like some, you're not going to like some, but hopefully everybody's got that piece that really draws them in, and and people will have their say along the way. I just feel like we can't go wrong with it. A little bit more beauty in this world is important.
Yeah, I think it's great. And can I also get a motion from you for this resolution?
I would love to make a motion to adopt this.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. Public comment? No public comment? All right. All in favor?
Aye. Exciting.
Nice.
Can't wait to get started. Thank you all.
Who would be the ministers of good peace?
That's
All
me.
right. Next up, 3H, Resolution 2026-78, authorizing the award of the contract for the design, permitting, and bidding documents for the replacement of Skunk Hollow Culvert to GFT Incorporated in the amount of $297,400. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Thank you. And Mr. Norsini, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, as was noted in the memo, the Skunk Hollow, the culvert in Skunk Hollow, if you looked in the pictures, is beyond repair. We had it evaluated by a structural engineer from GFT, so it needs to be replaced. This culvert is on the driveway that serves the parking lot for the Skunk Hollow Park, as well as the leaf recycling area for our public works facility. So that's not only used in the fall, it's used during the year, and as is the parking lot. So we're trying to move through this with DEP on an emergency basis, but we still have to perform all the requirements that are outlined in the GFT proposal. So this proposal is going to be to take us through the permitting stages with DEP. Concurrent with that is the design. And at the end, when we get a permit, design will be complete, and then we would be back to request to receive bids, public bids for this. And I respectfully request the board approve this resolution so we can get that design started.
Thank you. Any comments from the board, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Norsini, I just have one question. I know it's a culvert, it's a big deal, but it's a big price tag for the design. I mean, this is not buying the culvert, this is designing the thing.
So this price, and it was in the memo, but I should add, I showed a picture of how the access to this culvert is off of Darpaoli. It's pretty nasty. So not that we're going to be able to change that alignment, that's still going to sit, but part of this is for them to do some survey and see if we can make it a little safer getting down to the culvert. So this is in keeping with a percentage of cost for a culvert that's going to cost about $1 million. So a 25 to 30% design fee on culverts. Now, I'm being specific to culverts, bridges, and things like that because of all the work that goes into it. Other projects don't carry that same percentage. but this is not out of keeping with those percentages.
Thank you, I'm reassured.
Is the percentage, you know how some architects will be like, well, it's going to cost $500,000 and I'm taking 10%, plus, so now add 10% on that. It doesn't mean they're doing $50,000 worth of work. It just means that they're taking 10%, or they're going to add 10%. So how does
So the way this works is, we worked out a scope that needed to be done, and Gannett gave us a proposal on that scope. It just so happens it falls into those percentages. So that's not how it works out. They don't just say, okay, it's $1 million item, we're going to charge you X. It's based on the work. Because come the bid, you know, it could be less, it could be more. So they charge us on all the hours that go into doing all this work, which is considerable. If you read through the proposal, there's considerable work to be done.
Thank you. Any public comment? All right. Yes.
I'm sorry, one more question. So this doesn't say an amount not to be exceeded. This is a very specific amount. So is this what they're going to charge to get the thing designed?
This is
Could there be a contingency here, I guess, is what my...
Conceivably, and that's on, even with an NTE, there could always be some unforeseen thing. I'm confident that that's going to be the price. If it was something over and above that and over a specific amount, I'd be back to this board. But I'm confident in what they have given us.
Okay, thanks.
Just one more thing. Is this something that we, if we could do in-house?
So this is a project that takes a village. It takes a structural
Well, that's why
engineer.
it's so expensive, I guess, but.
Yeah,
really,
and it takes a team. So most municipalities don't have that ability, us included. Even with the start of our new person, there's a structural component, there's a water resources component, there's a highway component. So there's like 4 components, and we would, regardless of who we have here, we would go out for this.
Thank you. Any public comment? Okay, let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay, very good. Next up, 3I, Resolution 2026-82, authorizing the award of the 2026 Super Pave Street Resurfacing Project, number B-26-001, to Glasgow Incorporated, in the amount of $1,081,521.90. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. And Mr. Norsini?
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is the award of the Township's annual Super Pave Street Resurfacing Program. We had 3 bids. Glasgow Incorporated was the lowest qualified bidder, and they have done work in the township in the past, but we are again respectfully requesting this be awarded to Glasgow. Included in the packet was the streets list, as well as a map from our GIS coordinator, along with the 3 bids.
Any questions from board members? Any comments from the public? All right, let's call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, reports from boards. Any reports?
Just wanted to point out that tomorrow evening in this room at 5:30 is what would have been a Board of Health meeting. It looks like we don't have a quorum, but it will be our student presentations. We have 2 student interns every year that do a full 9-month-long project, and they'll be reporting that out tomorrow. Interesting.
Thank you. Anyone else?
What's the topic of their project? Sorry. Darn, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. You would have said it.
Any new business? Any old business? Public participation? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
And a second? All in favor?